All right, and I believe we are live. Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Bitcoin Lore Review. I can't believe it's been a year. It's actually been exactly a year. I checked the last time we did one of these shows, and it was in the middle of July of last year. Man, does time fly. And we got an amazing show for you today. And David Silver is joining right as we go live. Excellent. We got the one and only Jason Seibert, who's been on, I believe, on every show. Simon Dixon is coming back to give us an update on Celcius. David Silver, who's been on many of these shows. Welcome back, David. We're going to talk about Ripple with you specifically. And Joe Carlasare, someone new on this show, but Joe has been, man, him and I have been on Spaces forever. Joe is a perfect combination of law and economics and trading, so this is great. We only got 2 hours. I may extend it maybe a little bit, but we are going to jump right into the show after very, very brief intros. I'm going to go to screen share. I'm going to pull up your Twitters. I want people to follow you guys. Let's start with you, Jason. You've been on the show a bunch, so give a quick intro. Everyone knows you, and then we'll give it up to the other guys. But don't forget to unmute, guys.
Hi, I'm Jason. I've been on
Everybody
the show.
can unmute.
Yes. Hi, Tone. Thanks for having me on. Joe Carlasare. I'm a partner at the law firm of Amundsen Davis, based out of Chicago. I'm also the co-chair of our blockchain, fintech, and cryptocurrency practice group. I am a litigator. The vast majority of my practice is litigation. I have about half of it focused on some sort of Bitcoin or crypto adjacent litigation. So thanks for having me on.
All right, everyone's links are in the video description. Go ahead and follow these guys. Simon, go next. We should have checked your audio. All right, while Simon works on his audio, Silver, you're up.
I wanted to go last because I'm normally last in this group. I'm the least important, you know. My name is David Silver. I've been doing this since like 2012. It used to be every lawsuit had my name. It used to be my intro. I said if there was a lawsuit in crypto, it would have my name. It's not the case anymore. I'm no longer famous. But I just want to point out very clearly, because my wife would get irritated at me if I didn't say this. I'm very skinny now. I've dropped 35 pounds in the last 2 months. So I'm good looking now. I don't need to be famous anymore. Good looking is better than famous. Love being here. Love that the old crew is back together. I don't know who Tone looks like, but he looks like some evil character in some movie. I can't place it right now with the beard, but he looks like an evil person right now.
Everyone
have to tell me who it is.
Ming the Merciless is what the consensus is from Flash Gordon.
That might be it. It's crazy. I love it. I could not shave for like 5 years and not have that much facial hair. This is actually probably like 2 months of growth on my face right now.
All right. Hey, this is Silver. Yeah, so speaking of those cases with your name on it, we may review a few of those. Simon, your mic working yet?
Yeah, how's it sound?
Whoa, it's loud. It works. I'm not gonna say it's great, but it's good enough for this show. Of all our tech issues, we'll take it.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm Simon Dixon, and as soon as the Richard Hart thing came about, I couldn't think of anywhere else I'd rather be, because we've seen the whole journey of, you know, Richard being. I think it was Bitcoin Uncensored that he first came out. It was Chris Rose that brought him to our world. And then you've had lots of trouble with him and everything in between. And the fact that you were mentioned, thought, yeah, as soon as this came, it's an interesting story that we've all shared from start to beginning. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it was. It might have been Chris Rose, but it also could have been us over. Oh, wow, I forgot all about that. By the way, I never released the video of this. I have a video of us doing the very first law show in the men's bathroom down in Miami. That was, I still have that video. I'm waiting for the right moment to release it. That was great. I forgot that Seibert was using it over on his Twitter. Yeah, it might have been, maybe the Rose was the first to mention him, but it was us on the World Crypto Network that gave Richard his first platform to speak publicly. And I've been apologizing to the world ever since. But back then he was a little bit more of a maxi. All right, we got a lot.
Yeah, he was
cover.
A proper Bitcoin maxi then.
Yeah, but we should have known better from his past history. All right, We got a lot to cover. I actually forgot there were like 2 additional things. I didn't even put Binance on the agenda or Coinbase in the tweet. We got 6 amazing topics. If we can get to all of them, that would be great. Let's do a quick recap. This is the last show we did. And in our last show, we talked about Celcius, Ripple, the Solana class action. I have no idea what happened there, and some kind of DAO liabilities. But let's do a quick update on Celcius. By the way, who's pressed for time? Who has to leave first? Because the order of the topics is completely flexible. So who has less than 2 hours for the show? And then we're going to cover specific topics.
I will be in and out. I actually have to work a little bit today, so I'll be in and out, but I'll stay on for the 2 hours, but I will drop out around 1 o'clock for a little bit. I do have to do a couple of things so I can keep my ostentatious lifestyle and just make it about my sense of humor.
Got it. Anyone else? Time constraints? Nope. Good to go. Excellent. So let's do a quick recap on Celcius. The latest in the criminal charges is that Mashinsky has been charged criminally. As expected with every shitcoin, he was personally profiting from selling the Celcius. Even his company complained about it. But like everybody else, I mean, this is what they kicked Jeb McCaleb out of Ripple for selling his own tokens. They prevented him. He went and started another token. Talk about a guy with 19 lives that never gets anything done to him, which is Jeb McCaleb. We should do a whole show on him one day.
Hey, Tone, do you have a screen for Celcius, or are you just going to keep that still shot of our old law review up there?
No, I changed. What the hell happened?
No, we're still looking at that non-relevant screenshot up there, Tone.
Oh crap, my bad. My bad.
Sorry, I'm just going to produce from here.
No, that's good. No, that
Jason wants to see me. Jason wants it to be all about David so that he can make fun of me in about 20 minutes about how much smarter he is than me.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I got to tell you, David, I think you're skinnier than I am now, and you're looking good.
That wasn't even the right screenshot. This is the right screenshot. This is the last Bitcoin law review. There is a Bitcoin
but I look like I'm stoned there. What is
Yeah, I'll hit the play button for a minute. It's not getting any better. Anyway, there is a whole playlist here, so you can watch all of the Bitcoin law reviews. Apparently, we've had 37 of them. Amazing. So here are the latest charges against Mashinsky personally for enriching himself, selling his own tokens, not caring about the people. We all saw this coming. I remember the videos from 2019 came out of Seibert and myself basically telling him he's running a Ponzi scheme. So Simon, you've been all over this. You've been trying to restructure this. Give us a quick update on what the hell's going on with Celcius, and then we'll get the lawyer side of it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so on the Celcius case, basically, when I invested in the equity round in 2020, when it was meant to be just sharing over collateralized loans, and we weren't meant to get any of the currency risk. So if I wanted to borrow against my Bitcoin, I could lock up some Bitcoin in Celcius, and then someone else that wanted to borrow that would put in over collateral, and then they would take the risk. So a hedge fund manager like 3AC would take the risk, but eventually it turned out that it was under collateralized. And then over time, Mashinsky decided to actually become hedge fund manager without realizing that he's now operating a collective investment scheme. So the UK financial services regulator, because he was originally a UK company, chucked him out of the country, saying that you're operating an illegal collective investment scheme by UK law. And so he decided to reincorporate in the US and transfer all of our assets, about $9 billion of assets, and then just get more and more risky. So he decided that as more and more funds were being lost, he came up with a couple of strategies in order to lose it. So he started investing, using our money in order to borrow $1 billion and invest in Bitcoin mining, which meant that he now had a long-term investment, started investing in private equity. And then when he got chucked out of the UK, he had to come over to the US, and then the US state regulators said, you're offering illegal securities because now you're offering yield. And he told everybody that it was 80%, he would share 80% of the yield with their users, and 20% was for the company. That was all a lie. Everything was a lie. This hole turned into a $3 billion hole in the end, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And he just misrepresented to everybody, you should deposit more funds, and got himself where all along he was paying the yield with new depositors' money, essentially. So a bunch of state regulators said you're offering illegal security, so he had to close in a bunch of states. Then what he decided to do was close for those and then put some of that money in custody. And then a bunch of state regulators said you're offering an illegal custody service. And so this money was just put in hold. Immediately when it moved into the bankruptcy process, one of the first rulings was essentially because Celcius is an illegal bank, it didn't have the licenses, that actually when you signed up to their terms and conditions, the coins are property of Celcius. So for the last year, lawyers have been spending $200 million of our money in order to try and restructure the company and get us out of bankruptcy. Now we know that 50% of all the deposits were lost, and the mining company where he borrowed $1 billion using our coins as collateral is worth 50% less. So the end result was that you got a minus 50% yield when you thought you were just sharing over collateralized loans. Now, where it comes to the criminal case, it took about a year to get to this phase, but after closing and pausing and entering into bankruptcy, 1 year later, the SEC, the DOJ, the CFTC, the FTC, the New York FDC, I think it is, whatever, too many acronyms. But the securities regulator said you're offering illegal securities, and they said there's now got 7 counts with up to 115 years. The first is 20 years for illegal securities offering. Then there's wire fraud. Then there's the cell token manipulation.
Simon, back 20 years for an illegal security offering?
Yeah. So
That
each
seems
one
a little
comes with a
excessive.
maximum of 20 years. Sorry, it's not.
Securities fraud. Securities fraud.
Yeah, securities fraud. Sorry,
it's not the offering.
Fraud.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
the lawyers protect me if I'm getting this wrong.
Interrogate Simon here and be like, Simon, you didn't understand that when he spoke that you were investing in a mining company? I'm shocked that you didn't know your entire assets were just, that you were just giving him money for a mining company. This is ridiculous. You should have known better. You should have known the man was a liar.
Yeah, well, in 2020, he was actually an over-collateralized business model, and it was how he represented it to us. It was just what happened after that got worse and worse and worse. But essentially, he tried to fill a multi-billion-dollar hole by borrowing against our Bitcoin, and then he was going to invest in a massive mining operation, bought 120,000 ASICs that he pre-ordered without even having anywhere to plug them in. They've been sat in a shelf for the last 2 years, losing all of their value. And he wanted to take the company public, IPO it, fill the hole. And then when that didn't quite work out, over the whole period, basically he spent about $600 million of client funds pumping the price of Bitcoin, pumping the price of Cell token. And essentially he was the only buyers in the market. They were pushing the price up to the point where it got to about, this multi-billion-dollar balance sheet that they put on their assets. And then they misrepresented. He told everyone that he had this multi-billion-dollar balance sheet and persuaded Canadian pension funds to invest $690 million into the company, which they did. It turns out that whole balance sheet was the Cell token. And it had been completely manipulated, the price up, and it was just this fake balance sheet assets. You got Cell token manipulation, you got Cell token securities fraud. The case is that you've got the earn program, which is being defined as a security, and there was a load of fraud around that. And then you've got the Cell token, so there's another 3 counts there. There's a total of 7 counts. Now, what's interesting is because we've got 50% of assets, we're trying to build a mining company to restructure it. We're short about $3 billion. But what the FTC came along and said is we'll sit in the bankruptcy proceedings, so Celcius can't reemerge or anything, and we're going to fine you $4.7 billion. But they made it where it sat underneath customers. So customers get their money first. they're allowing the company to re-emerge out of bankruptcy because it would just harm creditors if they did that. But they're saying, here's a $4.7 billion fine underneath creditors. And where this gets really funky is if Bitcoin goes higher than $55,000 during this bankruptcy proceeding, we're trying to get out this year, then in theory, Celcius could make us all dollar whole, because our claim is not our Bitcoin, it's the dollar at $20,000. So if the price goes up to $50,000, they can pay us all off and give all the assets, everything would go to the government. So before that, it was going to go to shareholders. And so they put this $4.7 billion claim in the middle. And so really, in a nutshell, it was this illegal bank and this illegal securities. It couldn't do a SEPA liquidation. So the coins became property of Celcius. They said that we were borrowing them. So they won that case. Then they're looking to distribute them. And they had this really weird scenario based upon the price of Bitcoin where it could drive a recovery. So they longed it out for one whole year. And essentially, the lawyers have been leeching $200 million of our money. And hopefully we get out by the end of this year, because if Bitcoin goes above $55,000, we get rug pulled and the government ends up with the whole mining operation that they can then sell off all the ASICs and take it for themselves.
Someone told me, is it true that an ASIC has about 24-month max life?
Oh, great. Oh, say again. Say again.
Someone
David?
told me that as part of this case, the argument's being made that the ASICs have a 24-month lifespan for true value. After 24 months, they're outdated. So aren't these ASICs old already at this point? Aren't the ASICs like 4 years old?
The S19s and S19 Pro, so not the most.
They're still very good. They're still
After
very
4
useful.
years, these things still have the computing power to deal.
Yeah.
Cool. Look, all I'm gonna say about Mashinsky is the 2 weeks before the whole thing imploded and they declared bankruptcy, we were in Miami together, and we were at a hotel at the bar, and I said something to him, and he looked at me and he's like, "Stop talking to me, because you're not worthy of my time." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "We did the D circuit together. He had security actually put their hands on me." And I was like, "Are you out of your mind?" I walked back to the end of the bar. And I was like, that guy deserves to go to jail. And like 2 weeks later, it went bankrupt. So, I mean, I'm sorry that it was my mojo and karma that blew up the investment. It was clearly me. But like, Mashinsky won.
Well, it needed to blow up. I mean, you know, he would have tapered this Ponzi scheme for as long as he could.
Yeah, I mean, he's the worst of the worst, because he preyed on the lowest of the low. I mean, the educated people who were there at the time, and like Simon, like, look, everyone's allowed to invest where they want. That's the whole point of crypto, that you can put your money into anything you want. But at the end of the day, he was pitching the idea of, this is just the future of banking, and this is as safe as a bank. And everyone I represent, they lost their life savings. They weren't doing this as an investment. They were putting their money in. They were putting $100,000 in, which was their life savings, to get this 5 or 6% yield. And I still remember, Tone, when you were yelling at him, because I had to go through all those clips as we were doing the lawsuits early on. Show me what the yield is. Bitcoin gives a yield. Bitcoin doesn't give a yield. Where's the yield? And the guy, like, you know, he unraveled, but he was so prolific in how he talked. It reminded me of the hexagons making fun of me yesterday. Like, just because you sound good doesn't make you legit.
David, you just reminded me. I think that was that wasn't the interview that I posted with Seibert. There was another time I was on a stream with just him or something like that. And we got into this argument over yield. I forgot where this was. I have no idea.
I don't know where it was, but you guys were sitting you were sitting in movie director chairs. It was just you and him. It may have been like a moderator or something, but you were in like movie director chairs, and you kept saying to him, if you can't tell me where the yield comes from, you're a scammer. And he kept saying, Bitcoin generates a yield. And you're like, no, it doesn't. I actually used that in the complaint.
Wow. If you find that video, please send it to me, because I don't know where that one is. Okay, so speaking of, I know I'm in the Joe Carlasare. So you brought it up. Is he going to jail? Is he going to go to prison? What's the lawyer's take here?
Can I share the defense? It may help you.
No.
Do you want
18 USC 1348 is the federal statute that will be used for either commodities or securities if you sell those fraudulently, and it has a felony of up to 25 years. So yes, Tone, he could go to jail for 20 years, if not longer. And if there's multiple counts, they could decide for those sentences to be served consecutively, which if there's 7 of those, right, well, what would that be? That would be 375 years. Is my math wrong on that? I feel like my math.
Wait, Joe, before you jump in, you have to decide if you want to be smart and really good like Jason in the law, or if you want to be funny and entertaining like me. This is
I'll try to blend the two. But
Sorry,
one
it's
thing
175 years is what he could go to.
Yeah. So one of the things, Tone, I think speaks to your question is really, to me, I found it interesting that they entered into the non-prosecution agreement at the end of June, I want to say, with Celcius, the entity directly, because there were clearly folks at Celcius, other corporate officers, employees that were aware that Mashinsky was going out and making false, misleading statements about the token, about its efforts, about the yield. I mean, he was on a ton of different Ask Me Anythings, podcasts, Clubhouse, Twitter, giving just blatantly false information. Actually, some of the times the employees after the fact would have to come in and scrub it. This is alleged in the indictment, right? So to me, it's interesting that everybody else, other than who's the other individual named in the indictment, everybody else basically has this non-prosecution agreement where they will be cooperating, right? Part of the terms of that non-prosecution agreement is that they have to effectively testify on behalf of the government against Mashinsky. So to me, I think they've got him dead to rights.
All right, we got less than 5 minutes left on this topic, so go ahead and jump in with any final thoughts. We have so much more to cover.
So here's
Can I give you the defense before you go? More lawyers jump in. So here's what Mashinsky's
let me finish up
defense is.
let me finish up the lawyer stuff real quick, and it'll only take me 30 seconds, Simon. All right, so at least a year and a half, 2 years ago, multiple states were issuing cease and desist orders telling him that they were selling unlicensed, unregistered securities. And immediately after receiving those cease and desist orders, Mashinsky would go out on YouTube, on wherever, and say that the government is wrong and they're not doing anything wrong, and continue to operate the same way. This has been my beef with the regulators from the beginning, and I've been counting on this since early 2017. If you know they're doing it wrong and you give a cease and desist order and you just sit back and let it continue, in the Bitcoin world, that means you haven't done anything wrong and they're just going to keep on doing it. The failure of the regulators to act when they knew it was wrong has led to this bankruptcy, because it could have stopped a long damn time ago. And that's my soapbox. I'll leave it there.
All right, so what's the defense, Simon?
Yeah, the defense is he's saying Cell token is not a security. The second defense is the earn program is not a security. Why? Because it's not dependent on my efforts, because the yield was fake. We made up the yield. It wasn't connected to our efforts. And the third one is that everything I said publicly, the Elizabeth Holmes defense, was so unbelievable and so ridiculous that it's mere puffery, and therefore it was not meant to be believed.
Oh my God.
Good luck
So,
with that.
There's
Good luck
only
with that.
one state that I know of that considers, when looking at statements made in connection with the sale of a security, that has a buyer beware component, and I think that's Delaware. Every other state, whether they're a disclosure state or Oregon is one, and that's where my bar is, and it's completely left my head. Anyway, Delaware allows you to have puffery as a defense, but I don't think the federal securities laws do. So
It doesn't matter, guys, because there's the wire fraud count, and they have compelling evidence, if it's true what they've alleged in the indictment, that he manipulated the CLE token. So that token manipulation wire count sticks. Doesn't matter what he said.
that's true.
Yeah, and also his statements that he didn't sell while he was selling and manipulating, they got him dead to rights on that. So, and the underlying sale of the token, Mashinsky's going down, but I don't think Mashinsky's going to go. I don't think it's going to be as long as people hope. I don't think he's going to be in jail for 100 years. Wyszynski, if I have to guess, between restitution, it's going to be how much of his money he's willing to put up personally to cover as much of the hole. If he comes in and strokes a check for $1 billion, Simon, would you rather have $1 billion back in the pool and cover 30% and he goes to jail for 10, 15 years, or he goes to jail for 30 and misses the $1 billion?
This is
people's retirement. This is pensioners. They need that money back.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, that much. I don't think he's that rich. I don't think he can cut a check for over 100 mil. I don't see it, but Joe,
This is a plea case.
Money overseas.
Yeah, this is a plea case. He's going to end up serving 3 to 5 years.
Oh, Joe, we're not going to be friends if you're going to be so low. Joe, you got to pump this up a little bit. People are going to hate you.
I'm just telling you, this is a plea case. It's a plea case.
And he'll most likely serve that out at Camp Texarkana.
Yeah, but he's only getting 3 to 5 years. He puts up real money. No way. I go 15 to 20.
15 to 20.
No, I go under
20
5.
if he doesn't put up any money.
Joe.
So, Tone, you have a paid for to ask question here. There's a question.
They factor in the fact that there was massive victims, like, the severity. This is literally hundreds of, thousands of pensioners that wiped out their entire 401k because he represented this as safer than a bank. Does that come into the equation?
Absolutely. It's sentencing. It does. Yeah.
I can't believe I'm going to quote Martin Shkreli on yesterday's crypto town hall. But Martin was really funny about talking about the sentencing guidelines for Richard. And what he's right is each individual investment, if it gets tagged to Wyszynski, his guidelines will blow through. I mean, it'll be hundreds of thousands of years if it blows through. I agree with Joe. This case is not going to go. He's going to do some form of plea. But if he doesn't have the money, I think he has. I think he's going away 10 plus easy.
What do you think he has again? How much do you think he has?
I think he has the Vonage money. He has the retirement funds. He's got his money overseas in Israel. He's gonna have to stroke a big check to get 3 to 5 years. So I'm talking $1 billion.
He had to put his penthouse up as bail, which he bought with creditors' money, by the way.
Yeah, but I mean, every criminal does that.
All right, guys, we got one quick question, but please answer it quickly. We got to move on to the next topic from Dumb Money Media as a paid question. What's your opinion on nonprofit organizations connected to a crypto company selling tokens to non-accredited investors? I can guess, and it says it doesn't matter whether you're a nonprofit or not.
So let me do this real quick. You're asking for my opinion on a nonprofit organization selling tokens to non-accredited investors. I'm going to derive that this question is saying whether or not that's allowed, whether it has to be registered or not. It doesn't matter who sells securities to whom. If you're selling a security, you either have to register it or have some qualified exemption from registering it. And either way, you have to notify at a minimum the state in which you are offering that security. It may not rise to a federal notification, but belts and suspenders, start with the federal registration or exemption and then work down to your state level and go from there. Don't forget the state filing. That's all I got.
All right, we're moving on to the next topic. So from someone who is very likely to do a bunch of jail time to someone who I believe will not spend a single second behind bars. This brings us to SBF Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX, these are links, and all of these links are in the video description. These are links to the charges filed against him, the charges filed against other members of his company, like Carolyn Ellison, who probably testified against him, which is why she's not going to do any time, and Gary Wang, the former chief technology officer, and somebody else, another co-lead engineer. And at the end of the day, one more charge against Sam Bankman-Fried has been dropped. This is the campaign finance charge, which is the most craziest one of them all that should have sent him directly to prison. But this has been dropped, probably due to the gross incompetence of the federal government bringing charges, the same way Hunter Biden is not going to do any jail time. They're going to find a way to screw that up as well. I don't know if they're screwing it up because they're incompetent or they're screwing it up on purpose.
It's not incompetence, Tone. It's not incompetence.
They're screwing up.
I see
purpose.
Jason shaking his head. You can go, Jason.
I'm being sarcastic.
Hold on.
I
First
know
of
they
all,
screw up on purpose.
I want to loop back in Mashinsky for a second. Okay. If Mashinsky had the same campaign donation schedule as Sam Bankman-Fried, Mashinsky wouldn't be in the trouble that he's in now. Now, Joe, take it from there.
Well, I mean, let's just look at so again, you have to start with the extradition agreement, right? And that's what they cite when they drop the charge. Basically, they have treaty obligations internationally with the Bahamas when they were able to, obtain an extradition of SBF, and the government of the Bahamas is objecting apparently to the campaign finance charge. They say that's not the basis for the extradition. So it's really not a choice of the government. They kind of have to go along with that.
Someone said on the crypto town hall, one of the fancy lawyers, so I don't know if this is true, but they claimed that what Joe just said is 100% true. The explanation for why the campaign finance charge was dropped was because of the extradition with the Bahamas. But they said that there's a good chance that just like they're going to refile those in 6 months, it's not going away. They would be shocked. And, it was one of the big, one of the lawyers at one of the big fancy firms that I used to be at, not my strip mall lawyering days nowadays. But I've said since this happened, like that was
David, you own the strip mall, so that makes it different.
It doesn't go with the mojo. But I think that I said that the campaign finance charge was the one that had the most teeth, because that's a per contribution charge. I'm gonna be shocked if that charge doesn't come back. We'll see. The SBF thing is weird, man. I can't talk a lot about it because I've got some irons in the fire on that one. But it's we have to. I'll say this about Mashinsky, Sam. I'll say this about Richard the Lionheart. You have to hold people who act as criminals responsible. And I hope they hold anyone they can convict criminally responsible and send them to jail for a long time.
So I think the pattern here is Mashinsky, Bankman-Fried, Hart. None of these guys consider themselves to be actual fiduciaries that have obligations to the people that have given their money in their care. The second the money hits the account, they have a belief that it's their money, not the investor's money or not the holder's money. And this is a pattern all the way back to Big Vern, David, and Cripsy, right? And so until this pattern breaks, it's going to continue to happen, because right now, if you're sitting there wondering, should I start an exchange or not? Oh, I can walk off with $1 billion. Maybe I'll face 5 years in jail. I'll come out of it on the back end. I'll still have $1 billion. What's to keep me from playing that game? Because there is no consequence other than 5 years at Camp Texarkana, which they have their own golf course there, for Christ's sake.
Right. Well, the one wrinkle in all these cases, right? In with HEX, with FTT, with CLE, it's not just the con man, right? That does not treat money of others as a fiduciary. That's a huge element, but you can aid and abet and let these things persist a lot longer than you should, because you can print your own token. And printing the token and then manipulating the token, having unaware public, aid and abet that effort, that can prolong these things a lot longer than people would expect. So that's, since time immemorial, there have been people that were not to be trusted with someone else's money. Like that's not a new. That goes age old crimes, and we're well prepared for that. But the ability to have FTT and CLE and HEX, it just makes it adds a whole nother wrinkle to all this.
Ooh. Yeah, Joe, are you saying that having a token that you create out of thin air and monetize it for your balance sheet might be a criminal act? Say it ain't so, Joe. Say it ain't so.
Well, it's not inherently criminal, but you sure as hell can do criminal things with it.
It makes it easier to commit crimes. I mean, that's basically it. It just makes it so much easier.
All right, so if there's no more comments, we do have some questions. I know I have a question. Patrick Motorist, that's here with me, as a question. Let me get Patrick here on the stream real quick. He'll ask his question. What's up, Patrick?
Yeah, so I have a question for Joe and David regarding the SPF saga. So Joe correctly mentioned that it was the Bahamian government that said part of the extradition agreement is that the campaign finance charges should be dropped. But I have a little bit of a suspicion about that. Part of that doesn't really make any sense. Why would the Bahamian government be so concerned about American campaign finance charges? I have a feeling that this is what they were told to say from somebody in the American State Department or the American government or something like that. And to David's point about how these charges might come back. Well, if the Bahamian government was told to say this to protect the politicians in America, I don't think that charge is coming back.
That's an interesting take. Any comments?
The only comment I would make is that countries are very reserved about their sovereignty, right? They want to make sure that when they're participating in extradition, that the receiving country does not go too far in what the basis for the extradition is. So it might just be a sovereignty issue. I understand the conspiracy arguments. I guess it's possible. I can't dismiss it outright, but I generally would like to see more evidence of that.
Tom, what was his name?
Patrick.
Patrick, where'd you go? You got to answer questions. We're interactive on.
Oh, no, he's right here. He's just not in the camera.
So I don't know if this is much as conspiracy, but I think at the end of the day, don't forget where FTX was located. This might be a money grab. The more that they can do, the Bahamas, they want their money too. There's a lot of people grabbing money here, and how governments can grab money. We just heard Simon go on about how he thinks if Bitcoin hits 55,000, the US government's going to make a play for Celcius machines and money. I don't believe that, but governments want money too. BitConnect, at the end of the day, BitConnect, they decided they plugged a number for how much people lost, and then they walked away with the last $30 million rather than giving BitConnect users as much money back in their pockets as possible. So for me, I'm not a conspiracy guy, I'm a money guy. Follow the money. I think it's the money. They're going for money somehow. I can't say how.
So you think the Bahamian government is doing a money play? You think that's what it is, David?
I always think it's a money play. I don't believe in conspiracies where and by the way, the money play could be the Biden administration said, you guys do this for us, we'll give you $1 billion in military aid. I don't know where the money play is, but it's a money play. And I don't think anyone's doing anything to protect the Bidens without getting paid. And I'm not saying they're doing that. I'm just saying that that's how people roll.
I've spent a little time in the islands, not much, and I've spent a little time in the Bahamas. They value their sovereignty. And so I think it is that play that Joe was talking about. And the agreement was, we'll ship this guy over to you on these claims, and that wasn't one of the claims. You don't have that jurisdiction, which effectively means the Bahamian government has control over that claim. And so I think you're both right. I think, David, it's a grab of some sort in the end. So you have to flex the jurisdiction in order to get the grab. Yeah.
All right, I got one question.
They didn't violate Bahamian law though for the campaign finance, so they can't prosecute him on that claim.
I understand, but I think it's a flex for a later grab. I think you're both right.
Let me, I got one more question since the word conspiracy theory was mentioned. I got one. I would love to get your comments, and then we're moving on to the Ripple case before David has to jump on his call at 1 o'clock, but I know he'll be in and out. So here is the conspiracy case, and someone brought this up to me, or I read it somewhere, and it's similar to the Bernie Madoff situation. When the Bernie Madoff funds imploded, everything got assumed, or the government classified everything that the whole thing was a Ponzi. And when the government basically announced that everything was a Ponzi, there was no reason to investigate any of the individual transactions that might have actually been real. So coming back to FTX, no one's talked about this, by the way. The potential conspiracy is that while there was lots of real transactions happening within FTX, a lot of it having to do with Ukraine, and a lot of it having to do with the finance charges. If the entire thing just gets brought up as, oh, it was a Ponzi scheme, and nothing was real, all the money was just randomly used, not a single transaction through FTX is going to be looked at because it will be swept up as it was all just a Ponzi. Any thoughts on that in order to just like not investigate any individual transactions?
It's just, there's so much speculation in there. I don't even
Yeah.
know where to start. In order to investigate transactions within an exchange, you have to have some reasonable basis, some plausible predicate in order to even search that or trace that. And
Right.
yeah, it's just too speculative for me, Tone. I'm sorry. I'm gonna
Yeah,
pass.
Tone.
Right, but that's the point, right? Like because if they sweep it all under the word Ponzi, there won't be a reason to look into any transactions.
Well, Tone, let's just go back for a second here, because I, as you know, I agree with many of your takes. Okay, the whole start of this segment is, I think, your hypothesis that SBF is never going to serve a day. Okay, I strongly disagree with that. I mean, I could not. We could talk about some of these ancillary charges being dropped or not, and what the motivation is, but at the core of it, they've got, I think, compelling cases on wire fraud that they can put them away for years on alone. Okay, you've got Carolyn Ellison, Gary Wang, Nishad Singh, all cooperating witnesses, all ready to bury the guy, and it's probably part of their agreements to plead guilty and have reduced sentences. The notion that he's just going to get a walk, I think, is I don't even know where you're going with that. How could you reach that conclusion with the evidence we know they have right now on the trial we're going to set for, is it October, Jason or David? You know, I think it's October, right?
My conclusion is drawn just from him being so politically connected. And this is yes, they have enough evidence to put him away for a while. I'll believe it when I see it.
I mean, everybody else has pleaded guilty. So you have, they're cooperating for a reason. I mean, they made those deals knowing that this is going to be the fall guy, SBF.
Jason, sorry, Silver, you're smiling.
Yeah, I'm just chuckling that Adela chimed in. She agrees with Joe. I don't think Adela's ever agreed with me a day in my life. I can't talk about the SBF stuff too specifically.
David,
but
that one time you said you were wrong, Adela agreed with you on that.
I do think that he's going to spend a significant amount of time in jail. Whether he gets pardoned down the road, I don't know. That would go to the political connections. But right now, I wouldn't want to be him facing what he's facing. There's a lot in play. I don't disagree when you look at the connections, but a lot of people, especially politicians, got burned here. There'd have to be a true cabal, and the true cabal want to help him out. And I just don't see that at the moment.
The pardon is really interesting. A last day in office, 2024 pardon, right? That's right. Really interesting.
So Justin Filson asked a good question that I think we should address here. The question is, if you lost funds from these exchanges, FTX, Celcius, can you write those losses off at the value of the date they declared bankruptcy? The answer is no, because it looks like FTX and Celcius are going to emerge with some value going back to the holders. I think there was a deal a few months ago with Celcius that holders were going to get 72.5% or somewhere around that of those funds. So from a basis standpoint, you have to take a look at your original amount invested, which is your basis, and then look at the value of whatever it is that's been returned to you. And if it's a loss, then you write off that difference. If it's a gain, well, pay your taxes. That's all I got.
So this is where Jason forgot to say he's not your lawyer. He's not giving you legal advice. Because
I have that as a disclaimer.
I would say that there are a lot of people who I represent. We send them to a very large law firm in Washington, D.C. to write opinion letters about how to deal with their losses. typically you have to have lost more than $500,000 to make this worthwhile. But depending on your income and your tax situation, there are lawyers who can help you expedite taking tax write-offs, working directly with your accountant. And if what Jason says, for instance, is I'm not aware of any distributions from Celcius or FTX yet. If you take a write-off and your lawyer and your accountant, your lawyer gives a letter to your accountant, if you take a write-off that then gets called back, you have a way of getting around penalties, but that requires most lawyers will charge somewhere between $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, depending on the complexity of your tax situation.
Yes.
To write that memorandum. That we have lawyers that we recommend to do that. Again, it's usually only cost effective if you lost $500,000 or more.
Yeah, and there's a lot of folks doing this right now with Voyager, because I think Voyager they did pay out, right?
But Voyager had a distribution, so you know exactly. It's much easier to do it on Voyager, and the differential is less than on Voyager. I forget what you got, but I think someone said around 70 cents on the dollar on Voyager.
Right.
So most people's losses were significantly less. This is for people who lost a lot of money who need to get back in. Again, I don't do that. I can tell you you retain the lawyers myself.
Guys, we gotta move on, because we're answering if you are watching my show, the chances this applies to you is like 0.1%. Okay, no one watching my show should have lost any money in this shit. Okay, so I don't want to spend any more time helping those people. Okay? And then yes, ask a professional about that situation. There is a disclaimer in this video that this is not legal or tax advice. I'm gonna get you guys out of here on this. Whose position would you rather be in right now, Mashinsky or SBF? One word answer. Anyone can jump in.
Mashinsky.
Wait, he's younger. What was the question?
Like, who would you rather be, Mashinsky or SBF? Like, if you were one of these people, who would you rather be?
SBF.
You mean from a legal exposure standpoint? You mean from? I don't want to be either of these folks, but from a legal.
Look at Joe giving like caveats now. No, Joe, no caveats. You got to pick one.
Well, like from how I'm spending the rest of my life, basically.
SBF. SBF. I'd rather be SBF.
Well, he's younger. Yeah, that's easy because he's younger.
Well, no, are you kidding? No, that's a cop.
That's why I said from a legal exposure standpoint. If you're talking about legal exposure, who would you rather be?
Legal exposure. My answer is legal exposure.
Yeah, Mashinsky.
You'd rather be
really on legal exposure.
And you guys are on the SBF team.
So this could turn into an interesting discussion. I think SBF has less exposure than Mashinsky does. But hold on a second. Let me consult the oracle here. SBF.
Let's not get into the Clinton lists and stuff. Let's assume that's not a factor.
Exactly. See, Joe, there's a lot of picking on lawyers on this show, man. You can't give legal answers. No one's a real lawyer here.
All right, guys, we're moving on. David, you're gonna go first. The Ripple Labs situation. So, Ripple Labs.
Hold on. Take that off. Let's go widescreen for a second. Okay.
Fine.
Okay. So, at the Miami Shitcoin conference, all right, David and I were on stage on a legal panel, and this topic came up, and Adela was there as well. And I made the prediction that I was pretty sure that they were going to win at the district court level, but lose on appeal. And David said, hell no, they're going to lose. It's obviously a security. David.
Joe, I'm gonna help you out here how this works.
No, this is the point where you say I was wrong.
First of all, you got threatened by someone on the stage at that conference, and we're threatened, and someone wants to beat you up.
So, I know that's true. That's very true.
So I don't recollect you parsing that the district court was going to rule one way, and that the appellate court was going to rule the other way.
It's not the first time somebody wanted to kick my ass for things I've said on stage.
So, I say this a lot, and I've been doing this since 2012 now. The original Cripsy case was 2012. So am I OG now? Like, Tone, am I like crypto OG since I've been here since 12?
You have, but the Cripsy case wasn't 12. The Cripsy case was 13 or 14.
No,
Yeah.
the class action was 13, 14. I sued Big Vern in 12 on Sky
Okay.
Banana. But I've been in crypto now doing cases for investors since 12. So my perspective here is if they had brought the Ripple case, Ripple would have lost if they had brought the Ripple case when Ripple first started selling the token, and we were doing this years before. Ripple got to ride the wave of legitimacy from when they first started selling the Ripple tokens or whatever, the XRPs. It's different than the company. I don't even know when that started, but I think it was like much earlier, like 12, 13, 14 when this all started. But they got to ride the wave. Timing helped them at the district court level, and everything the SEC did to step in shit helped them to get that decision in 2023.
Like the Hinman statement, which I'm about to pull up.
Yeah, the Hinman statements, like all that, it's going to be overturned. And Judge Rakoff, who I have nothing but respect for, if we're going to pick Judge Torres or Judge Rakoff, Judge Rakoff this week saying Judge Torres.
Oh yeah, no, we're gonna get to Rakoff. He is one of the best judges. This is his book, and I recommend people go out and get Rakoff's book. It's very good.
And he's no fan of the SEC. He has gutted the SEC and thrown body blow to body blow. But at the end of the day, I said this for the last couple of months. John Deedon, God bless what John Deedon did. He deserves all the credit in the world for what he did in that lawsuit, representing the 70,000 XRP army people. But they won the battle. The war is still going on, and there's a lot still to be played here.
So the one thing that I was happy to see, at least in the analysis, is some differentiation between a difference in buyers. United Housing versus Forman. If you are purchasing something to use it, it is not an investment. And that's the thing that I've talked about.
I knew you were going to say that. Jason, I knew you were going to bring up Forman, and I was ready with the link.
Outstanding. Thank you. So this is what I've been talking about with utility tokens and pushing back against the SEC's current stance that every token is a security. Well, it's not. You can have different classes of buyers. And finally, it's been broken down that at least in one case, we're starting to get some understanding that one person can purchase for one thing, another person can purchase for another. It can be the same thing, and it can be different types of transactions. And that was the shift that I was happy to see, is that they're starting to classify things differently.
Oh my God, what are we, 2017? We're going to start talking about utility tokens again, and I'm going to get booed off stages? Are you out of your mind?
XRP is a utility token, and it's simultaneously an investment.
Who bought it and was using it as a utility token at the time?
I don't know. But if that's the purpose of the use, then that's what it is.
Oh my God.
But I'm right, David.
I do believe how it's sold matters. I don't believe anything sold on a secondary market should be deemed a security. From the Coinbase perspective, you should be allowed to go on Coinbase and buy XRP. There should be some different regulations here, but from the perspective of secondary markets, when someone goes in and buys from a market maker, it's just not the same. But the underlying sale, I think what we're seeing, even if the Torres doctrine stands, the Torres doctrine says you can't sell this shit initially. You can sell it on the secondary markets and give it out to people that work for you. Rakoff came in and blew that up, but we'll see. I don't really.
You can sell it initially. It just has to be, under Reg D or, other. Right. I mean, but you can, right? And so if that is the rule of law, you should expect widespread proliferation of new shitcoins. So if the secondary market is off limits and anything can be sold from a market maker on Coinbase, then for all intents and purposes, you should see an explosion in shitcoinery.
So the liquidity problem.
6 weeks.
the liquidity problem with that is that, your 14-year-old wanting to pump mad gains off of shit coins isn't going to be able to clear the AML KYC on the pink sheets, shitcoin market, because Coinbase can't list securities. So you have to go to something like, what is T0 still in existence?
Yeah,
I don't know. Is it?
it is. It is.
Right. So you have to go to some place like T0 where nobody wants to trade because trading security tokens doesn't fit your 13 to 14-year-old equation of getting rich. So
Look, I
that's-
think that
the market motivations are against shitcoin registration.
I don't think that the players who wanted XRP, not the people who are like hexacons or, shitcoiners or alts are legal or airdrops should be legal. I think the real money players who are lobbying behind closed doors right now and are putting the real money into this, including Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken,
Did David freeze?
Yeah, I think we lost
Yeah.
him.
All right. I think he probably got a call coming in or something. Nope, he's back. David?
Oh, did you lose me or?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
lost
just
you.
for a minute.
Well, like a minute.
You were talking about the people that were putting in money into it, Coinbase, Kraken, and then you
I
froze.
think the people putting the money in want very much for the coins to be able to sold on US exchanges. And I think the movement from the regulatory perspective is that they want a way that the Coinbases of the world can sell these coins. And I think Torres's decision, which is why it was embraced so wildly by the marketplace, is a step in that direction. And I think that's what we're going to see, is that everything is going to move, and there's going to be a blending here of the regulators not finding a way to stop the shitcoins. You're going to have to do a sale and put your stamp of some form of security, and I use the word security loosely here, on a token for it to be sold on Coinbase. I'm gonna take a couple of break.
Well, David, what do you make of the language in the footnote then? Let's talk about the footnote where Judge Torres is explicitly stating she does not intend to make any ruling on secondary market sales generally.
You can't, that's like me telling my wife, I'm not gonna go to the club. But if I go to the club, I'm not gonna do anything wrong. She made a lot of statements that affect what's gonna happen there.
Right.
Then put a footnote that says, I'm not making any statements. She made a lot of bold statements. I just think that, look, she's a good lawyer like everybody else. She caveated out what she wanted to caveat out, but she said what people wanted to hear.
So here's my fix for all of it. All you fine folks at the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, listen up. I said since day one with Judge Mazan, cryptocurrency is more like a commodity than a security. Create a subclass of commodities to include shitcoins with a very simple process for exchanges to be able to classify them as a commodity and roll on. That's all we need to do. We could solve a lot of these issues. All right, Tone, what else we got?
But
Sorry, Joe, go.
it's not a commodity if you can easily change the code and triple the size of the pool. So, I mean,
I don't disagree. But, having certain functions, certain coins that behave in certain ways that fit within certain parameters, let them go.
You brought up the Forman case, right? And this is the problem I have with the
go ahead.
logic of this. Okay. In the Forman case, and you can quote from it, Tone had on the page, it says, there can be no doubt the investors were attracted solely by the prospect of acquiring a place to live, not by financial returns on investments. And if you were to poll in any world of, in any sense of reality, why 99% of people buy these things on Coinbase and elsewhere, it's because of financial returns. They buy the tokens because they're going to pump. It's that simple.
If
We
you
agree.
poll them with truth serum, but when you don't poll them with truth serum, they're gonna tell you it's for the technology, right?
No one uses the technology. I mean, this is silly.
But they will
It's silly.
all tell you that they are. There's not a single person that invested in HEX will tell you they got scammed. They all still believe in HEX because most of them actually got it for so cheap that they made money.
Yeah, right.
It's called the good deal exception. Yeah.
And they still think they're going to make money. See, the problem is when you blow up a Ponzi scheme, like this is why Corey Klippstein gets so much shit, because so many people are blaming him, because if it wasn't for Corey Klippstein, they would have gotten out right at the top and would have been rich. So they blame him for blowing it up 1 week earlier and like 1 day before they were ready to pull the money out.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to give just a small example of how you can buy Bitcoin or Ethereum without the intention of making any money off of it. Okay. In order for me to create my certified fake rare hand-drawn Pepes, I had to purchase Bitcoin, which had to be converted into counterparty, which then I had to use in order to create my NFT Pepes. The acquisition and use of that Bitcoin and that counterparty was not for investment purposes, it was for use. And so that is one case where you can say you can purchase these things for a utility purpose. And if somebody came after me saying you bought that Bitcoin for investment, I'd say, no, I didn't. I did it in order to make art.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, but that's not the standard. It's not the standard of
anyone
any
using the
individual.
Silk Road back in the day as the same argument.
But it's not an individual that perhaps is buying something and does not expect a profit from the labor of others. It is an objective, reasonable person type standard that is assessed on a market-wide basis.
And that's the fault. Because the SEC has been told many times and claims many times that they do it, that each transaction is different and they need to look at each one differently. But they've stopped doing that with cryptocurrencies. They've lumped them all into one deal. I defended a small gaming company a couple years ago. And sure, they had an investment side to their coin, but they also had an entire marketplace that was set up where those coins could be spent in that ecosystem. And the SEC refused to look at the acquisition of coins that were sold as an offset to the overall disgorgement that they were looking for. They wanted all of it disgorged, even though there was evidence, empirical evidence, that the coins were used as part of the ecosystem. And that's just wrong. It's just wrong, right? You would be able to argue that, or at least be able to say that to the SEC. Is like, no, we have clear evidence that half of this is use, and the other half, yes, we'll concede as investment, but you can't ding me on the whole thing, right? And I think SEC v. Liu that came out after I was arguing that case speaks to that as well. The disgorgement is an equitable remedy. Anyway, we're going into the weeds.
Yeah, we're going off on a tangent. Okay, real quick, I just want to summarize the Ripple judgment by Torres, and then I want to get your takes, what she got right, what she got wrong, and then we're gonna briefly talk about what Rykov did in the Terra Luna case, and then we're gonna move on to the main topic, which is the HEX story. And if there is still time, we got Coinbase and Binance just for quick thoughts. So there were 3 parts to the Ripple case. The first 2 are the most important ones. I think the third one is not. I mean, it's important, but not in the case of Ripple. I think it's important in general. But the first one was the initial sale of the Ripple tokens by Ripple Labs to qualified investors. That was like $700 million worth of tokens, which turned into billions of dollars. And Torres ruled that that was an unlicensed security sale. And I guess the SEC has an opportunity to go after that entire multiple billions of dollars and force Ripple to pay it back. And Ripple probably has that kind of money, unless they can prevent Ripple Labs from selling any more tokens ever anywhere. And they put a hold on the tokens that Larson and Garlinghouse has. I don't know how Joel Katz got weaseled out of this whole thing. I guess he wasn't sued by the SEC. And Jeb McCaleb, of course, weaseled out of this as well. So that's one part. and that's the SEC won on that. The part that the SEC lost was all the additional Ripple tokens that were sold by Ripple Labs, but through secondary markets like Coinbase and other shitcoin casinos. And for what I feel, and I'm not a lawyer, no reason whatsoever she put in wording in there stating that XRP itself is not a security. It's how you use the XRP. I mean, this may be true. Jason would argue that that's kind of true. We can argue that, I would argue that that's not true. But in any case, I think Joe and I would agree. She didn't have to say it that way. She could have said that the use of the XRP token in the secondary markets was not necessarily the sale of a security. I disagree with that. But yeah, Jason, yeah, let me just wrap this up and you can say when I'm wrong. And she said that that secondary market was not a security. And also, I think Ripple won on a third case as well, which is the Ripple tokens that they handed out to like some insiders, I guess some prominent promoters, YouTubers, and their employees. And in the Tomahawk case, it said that airdrops are securities, but it seems to have, not been on Taurus's radar. Now, I guess, Jason, you wanted to say something? So
Yeah,
It wasn't an
wanted to-
airdrop though, Tone. It wasn't an
yeah,
airdrop. It was a payment for services.
That's
Yeah,
why
other
it's-
It was a
distributions.
payment for
Yeah.
services. It wasn't exactly an airdrop, but I think that case could have been used because it is a kind of similar.
Maybe. I just wanted to bring up and correct something. If I was Ripple's lawyers right now, after this decision, I would walk into the SEC's office and say, hey guys, now that we're certain that these institutional investments were securities, we'd like to submit a rescission offering. And what a rescission offering is somebody that should have registered along afterwards, finding out they've done something wrong, offers up anybody that wants to sell back their Ripple because they thought it wasn't a security, but now it is. You have the opportunity to return these to us and we'll pay you the value
original
of that
price.
back. And that's
At
a
current
rescission
price?
offering,
At current price or original price?
original price.
Oh, no one's going to do that.
Exactly. But that's the way that you handle that situation. Great. XRP is registered. I've given a rescission offering. I'm in compliance. Have a nice day. That's one strategy that I would do, which means you don't have to unwind everything and give all the money back. That's an enforcement action that's required, right? Their defense was, we didn't know that we were supposed to comply, but now that we have a judge has told us, let's do a rescission. That's how I might approach this. That's just one strategy.
So Jason, so you agree with Taurus's view that XRP token in itself is not a security?
No.
I mean,
No,
that's a
no.
debatable case. You
No,
don't
I've
agree with
always said that Ripple was absolutely an investment. I've always said it was a security based on the way that they sold it, because they sold it just like they sold Ethereum, which the original Ethereum sales absolutely were an investment contract.
Oh yeah, we want to have a whole episode on that. No, but her
Right.
specific statement that XRP. So you disagree with her specific statement,
So
and
it's
you would agree with Ryko.
The thing itself is not an investment contract. That's the whole point of the investment
Correct.
contract analysis. It's a transactional analysis
Correct.
where, because of operation of law, we will imply in a contract. It's not an actual contract, it's an implied in law contract. So you have to look at the transaction relating to the sale to determine
Correct.
whether a thing is or is not an investment contract. You could have an investment contract with Bitcoin, right? Give me your Bitcoin, I will lend it out to others and I will pay you a yield. Okay.
And that was the original
transaction-
Shavers case.
Right.
Said that. Yep.
Right. I think it's unnecessary dicta where she makes this commentary about it itself. The thing itself, XRP itself, is not an investment contract. It's just code. It's irrelevant to the Howey analysis. She could have written this entire opinion and scrubbed those sentences and reached the exact same conclusion.
And so on to that conclusion, do you agree with her conclusion that sales of XRP token on secondary markets are not security contracts? And I disagree with that. What about you guys?
So this is where you have to look at the inherent nature of the thing, right? What does Ripple do? What does XRP do? It's just a value transfer protocol, right?
it adds an unnecessary conversion between one token or value to another value by sticking a Ripple token in the middle of it and now converting the currency twice. It's actually a very scammy use case for a token.
Okay, compared to HEX.
Oh, HEX is a straight up Ponzi.
No. Look at the nature of the thing. Right? The HEX
Well,
smart
are you
contract
asking me-
is a self-generating token printing machine.
That's HEX.
Correct. Ripple doesn't
Right.
do that.
Correct. Yes.
Right? So when you look at the two side by side, I think what the judge is saying here is XRP as XRP is not an investment contract, just like Bitcoin as Bitcoin is not an investment contract,
Yes.
right? So I kind of see where Judge Torres is going here.
Well,
If the thing itself is not a security, then selling it on a secondary market can't be a security.
well, hang on a second, because the judge
That's an
gives,
oversimplification, but
it is an
Well,
oversimplification, but
that's what she
it-
said. But do you agree with that, Seibert?
I kind of do.
Okay, Joe and I don't.
Yeah. So let's start from what Judge Torres looks at. Okay. And you can, and I suggest people go through her analysis under the programmatic sales. She states the following sort of factual findings to support her ruling that the programmatic sales are not, in fact, investment contracts. Number one, she talks about how it's a blind transaction, how the buyer doesn't necessarily know they're buying from from Ripple Labs, right? That's the first one. She also talks about how the programmatic sales represented less than 1% of XRP global trading volume. To me, that's really fascinating. It seems to suggest that somehow something could transform into investment contract if one player is dominant in the marketplace and is responsible for the majority of volume and sales of that token. Interesting. We can get to that in a second. But she also cites the fact that the promotional materials were not distributed directly to the buyers, which to me is the most confusing factual point she cites. Why is that relevant? Why would it be necessary that the actual sale go direct? There's case law, I think, that cuts against this sort of suggestion from Judge. Go ahead.
Let me clarify my answer. I don't agree with how Judge Torres got there.
Okay, fair enough.
But the end result, I think I agree with, right? The answer that if Bitcoin is not a security and Ripple is not a security, if that is the case, then they shouldn't be treated as securities for secondary market reasons. So the how Judge Torres gets there, I think, is the wrong path. But I agree with the underlying principle. Does that make sense?
When people say that a token is a security, I think it's really in normal parlance, that's just like shorthand, right? They're saying that the sale is in fact an investment contract or is not an investment contract by the original issuers. Because in practice, as you know, Jason, I mean, there are defined securities that are set by law. And then there's a catch-all for any and all schemes that could invariably be cooked up. Any innumerable amount of schemes the case law talks about could in fact
the investment
qualify.
Contract analysis. Yeah.
It's a catch-all analysis. It's meant to be flexible. It's meant to have a factor, fact-specific, analysis. And in this circumstance, right, yet the real question is: can secondary market sales of tokens? Can there be facts you could cook up that would qualify them to be investment contracts? Yes. And I want, so your answer is what to that?
So there absolutely could be facts that create that scenario.
Okay. So if you start from that standpoint, then
for example, staking, right? So Tezos staking absolutely is an investment contract.
Well, so is Ethereum staking by that.
What about the sales of NBA Top Shots? Could those plausibly be an investment contract?
NBA Top Shots?
Yeah,
you're talking about basketball.
The
NFTs.
The NFTs. Cards? No. Are you familiar with the Dapper Labs case?
No.
It's a
no.
Yeah. So this is a motion to dismiss. It's that was brought, and the court there found that that NFTs, okay, NBA Top Shots cards, digital cards, could plausibly be investment contracts. I think it's a few months old. Let me just from March, right? Southern District of New York, securities class action finding that the issuer of non-fungible tokens could plausibly be stated as being investment contracts because of the nature of the transaction.
Yes,
So-
and I agree with that. And the example that I've given before for other people trying to understand that is investment grade wine, right? You can buy investment grade wine as an investment, or you can buy it to drink it. One's an
or you could buy
investment.
orange groves, right? Or whiskey
Correct.
barrels. I mean,
Yes.
whiskey cask. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where, the analysis comes in. So yes, absolutely, people could purchase NFTs as an investment. How it's sold or the individual transaction. So I think we agree on more than we disagree.
No, I think so. I mean, the real question here to me is the secondary markets. That's the most confusing part of Judge Torres's opinion. And the question is, like, what are the facts that, if correctly constituted, would make secondary market sales be an investment contract? What facts? What would we look for in that type of transaction?
So let's take Bitcoin as Bitcoin, right? If, let's say, Coinbase was offering their own Bitcoin ETF with returns, now you're leading into an investment contract scenario. Agreed?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Right. So again, I don't agree with how Judge Torres got there, but if Ripple as Ripple itself is on a secondary market and there's no evidence that the issuer put it on that secondary market, then I think that token itself or that coin itself is not a security.
Well, in the case of XRP, right, in Ripple
Yeah.
Labs, there was evidence put forward by the SEC that 1% of daily trading volume was in fact due to the programmatic sales.
Yeah, again, I don't think the judge got there the right way.
Right. So let's just put some clarification on that. What do you disagree with about the progression of her logic?
Pretty much all of it, if I'm honest. Okay, but I'm trying to be professional here, right? We're lawyers talking about a judge's decision, and we need to give deference to that.
Of course.
I think I've made my point without beating it to death. If Ripple as Ripple is not a security, then pure secondary market sales, without it being the result of a market maker, etc., should absolutely be clean and not considered a security. That I'll just leave it at that without going into any more detail.
We got 9 minutes left on this topic. I got a question. So the SEC is obviously going to appeal this sale of XRP tokens on secondary markets, that they are securities. Raikkoff can help the SEC in that case, depending on how Terra Luna thing goes. So what do you think is next for this case? Joe, we'll go with you. Where does it go from here? I guess I'll leave it there.
Well, I mean, you still have the trial that's going to be set against Garlinghouse and Larson, whether they knowingly violated securities laws. That will proceed forward, barring the grant of an interlocutory appeal. I have not, to be quite honest, I've been engaged in a few other matters, so I'm not up to date. Maybe Jason knows on the status of whether the SEC is going to seek an interlocutory appeal. Do you know, Jason?
Jason went offline for a minute.
Okay,
We'll get back to him.
right.
I'm just refreshing my ice water. I'll be right back.
Of course.
Okay.
So that's the real question, right? So the way it works now, everybody seems to jump on crypto Twitter saying, well, they're going to automatically appeal this one way or the other. And that's true, right? But it's not a final order. And to become appealable in our system, you need a final order, which would necessitate the completion of the trial against Garlinghouse and Larson. So for a variety of reasons, you may have to wait several months, if not a year, before you actually get up in the appellate court. However, the judge could, of course, grant an interlocutory appeal upon request if she so chooses.
So can Torres change her mind on some of this stuff?
No. She's not going to change her mind. Her mind's made up, but she would give them the ability to not have to wait to the end of the case to immediately challenge her ruling. And what the SEC has already come out in another filing, I believe in the Binance action, and said that they disagree with the court's ruling here. They intend to pursue avenues of relief and to revisit the orders. So it could quite be a situation where they're just considering for strategic purposes when to appeal this. But obviously, it's not the final word of our entire legal system because one judge came down with an opinion. Obviously, as Jason mentioned, you give deference to it. It's important. It's a federal district court judge. It's not to just be dismissed outright. However, we've already heard at least a suggestion from another federal court judge a senior judge sitting in her district saying, I disagree with this analysis. I think there should be an entirely different view that the court should take on this. So it's to be determined. What I would say, just the big question right here, if you're trying to follow this case, is does the SEC attempt an interlocutory appeal? And I apologize because I don't know if they ended up making a resolution on that. They may have.
I don't know.
They may be in the point.
I don't know either. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so that's the real key question. If they don't seek an interlocutory appeal, it's going forward to trial, barring some sort of resolution.
All right, Jason, where do you think this goes next?
Hold on. I'm going to get my Oracle out again. I don't know. I'm going to stand by what I originally said at the shitcoin conference before people wanted to beat me up.
Yeah, you're not the only one. Before that happened, like a few hours earlier, I was on there debating some Monero guy. That didn't go well either. David, where do you think this goes next? The Ripple case before we
what are we
end
talking
it?
about? I think
Ripple, next step.
We were mostly discussing the part that the SEC lost, which is Torres saying that secondary market sales were not a violation of security law, and the token itself inherently is not a security. So the token itself not being a security is a very valid argument. But as Joe pointed out, she didn't have to write that down in print. But the sale of XRP on secondary markets, I think Torres got that wrong. You think she got it wrong. Where do you think this goes? Do you think SEC appeals this? Do you think this could be overturned? And then the final word would be on what Raikoff did and thrown a wrench into this statement by Torres. And quick word on Terra Luna, and then we're moving on to HEX. We got a bunch of Hexicans waiting desperately to hear our incredible takes.
Okay, so I think at the end of the day, the reason I was wrong is my initial interpretation of what was going to happen years ago is because I am still, amazingly enough, old school. And I think Rakoff came in and reminded us what old school looks like. I think the appellate court is old school, and the appellate court is going to remind us, if you do things to make money, we don't care how you call it, how you phrase it. Crypto has been very good, and shiesty crypto lawyers, who I have very little respect for, have charged hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars from 2015 to 2020, telling people you can make up words or phrases that sound like finance terms and that the courts are going to be convinced you're not a crook or a criminal. And I think those chickens are coming home to roost. And I think the appeals courts are a lot of old pasty people who think smoking is more important than crypto, which is what Rakoff said. And I kind of made fun of that today. I don't know if it was on one of Joe's tweets or on some other lawyer's tweet today, that they said how Rakoff talked about how tobacco was more important than crypto. 28 million people a day smoke cigarettes. 28 million people smoke cigarettes in America. 50 million people hold crypto. The number of people who smoke are dying every day. The number of people holding crypto are going up. So there's going to be, the decisions in the appellate court are not going to make the people of crypto land happy. But I think politicians, regulators, and lobbyists are going to eventually move the goalposts that are going to make people in crypto happier. If you understand that distinction, I articulated that properly. If not, Jason will clean it up for me.
But just a real key question, David. For me, I don't think there's a question that the SEC appeals this case at some point. The question is whether they appeal it, is seek interlocutory appeal. And where do you fall on that?
they're going to seek the interlocutory appeal. I don't know if they're going to win the interlocutory appeal argument. For them, they 100% want to do this on an interlocutory appeal. So from a litigation perspective, 100% they're going to try and do it interlocutory. I don't know if Torres gives them the out. She might say, no, you
Probably
guys
not.
lost,
Yeah.
and you're gonna go through with this case, and then you can appeal everything. I don't know if she's gonna let them do it piecemeal. I do think the Rakoff decision helps to make this an interlocutory appeal.
Yeah, well, that's clearly what he was doing, right? I mean, he threw a huge bone to the SEC. You could not make it more explicit. So yeah, no,
and I don't know if if you guys discussed this already. There's a big difference between summary judgment and motions to dismiss. Rakoff did his on a motion to dismiss, where you have to take everything the SEC says is true. Torres did everything at summary judgment after there's discovery, and you don't have to take everything as true. But what Joe just said is the most important thing here. Rakoff came out of nowhere and didn't have to touch this. He didn't just put his hand on the third rail. He squeezed the third rail to get the juices flowing again. So God bless him. I mean, I did a case in front of Rakoff against Kraken. And Tone, you probably remember this more because it kind of dealt with people like you. It was
I like Kraken.
It was the case where the desk trader, the OTC trader, got screwed out of his bonus, and we sued for his bonus for the trades. And they did a motion to dismiss, and we
I know this.
motion to dismiss.
David, was this recent? Was this in the last year or two?
It was about 2-3 years ago.
Oh, okay, so I may not know who that trader is then.
It's public. I'm forgetting. It was Jonathan Silverman. It's a public case. Like, I can talk about everything that happened there. There's a second guy who's still in the lawsuit. I forget the second guy's name. It was at the same time. But Kraken signed affidavits and stuff on the motion to dismiss. And Rakoff looked at the lawyer. He says, "Stand up." He's a big fancy lawyer at a big fancy firm. And he goes, "Do you understand how motions to dismiss work, sir?" And the lawyer is like, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Why did you file an affidavit in this motion to dismiss? And why should I not sanction you for this right now?" And the lawyer's like, "Well, we wanted to explain this." And he goes, "Well, if you're explaining something, Mr. Silver and his client win." And the lawyer finally sits down after getting just raked over the coals, no pun intended. And I stand up, and Rakoff looks at me, and I say something. He goes, "Mr. Silver, do you really want to speak? And do you want to steal defeat from the jaws of victory?" I go, "No, sir, I'll sit down." And he goes, "Motion denied." And I sat down. But he's no sitting fan of the SEC, and why he threw this bone, I think he just felt Rakoff twisted in the wind to make a decision, and God bless. But I think that's the only reason we make it interlocutory here and get this done quicker.
Yeah, so I will shill Rakoff's book. Rakoff is one of the best judges that the system still has. And I probably shouldn't say this before it gets completely corrupt. There's maybe a few, 2 or 3 like Rakoff left. And when they're gone, we are all in a lot of trouble in this country, in my view. Okay, so Simon, any last word? We do have to move on to HEX. I would love to do a full 2-hour show on each of these cases. Maybe the law show will come back regularly. Real thoughts on Ripple, Simon? You're muted. Muted. You're muted. Simon.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Just before I do that, I should disclose, as a CEO of a securities business, I am a shareholder in Ripple Labs, the company. I don't own XRP. And I'm a shareholder in Kraken, the company. One thing I did want to ask, because it's relevant now, is as soon as this XRP ruling came through, there was a flood of creditors in both the FTX case and the Celcius case, because their CEL token and their FTT token, if it is a security or isn't a security, is going to be subordinated and they have no claim. And so at the moment, on the 10th of August in the Celcius case, there's a bunch of letters that have all come through. And if CEL is a security, then anyone that held CEL token does not get entitled to their pro rata share of the estate. And in the FTX case, they just released their plan, stating that they believe because the FTT token is equity-like, It will be subordinated because it's a security. And all of them are using, well, if XRP is not a security, then we believe we're entitled to our claim. What would you say to them?
Anybody?
Jason, you're gonna have to be a real lawyer here. He wants a real lawyer answer.
If XRP is not a security, if that holds, XRP as XRP, then you have to do the same analysis that we did earlier on by taking a look at the function of that thing and whether or not it has any special properties of it that create an investment contract. Whereas we talked about the HEX smart contract prints more HEX, it has function to it. You have to take a look at the individual element itself to determine whether or not that cell token has any properties. Backing up, if the cell token can be shown to be evidence of an investment contract that was the deal that was done prior to that, then there is the scenario where a token itself can simply be the evidence of that investment contract. So I'm gonna bow out and say it depends. And I don't know enough about the cell token.
In the cell case, they actually filed a Form D to say it was a security.
No, but the cell token itself doesn't have those characteristics. It doesn't have sort of the algorithmic sort of issuance to schedule. That's my understanding. So I think you're going to have to look at the broader analysis as to how it was sold to see if the sale would qualify as an investment contract. So I think the thing itself in the context of cell, personally, just my opinion, not legal advice, I don't think it is in fact an investment contract in itself.
Yeah, I think the schemes that were going on can be looked at with some scrutiny, but I agree with you.
All right, we do have to move on. We are 25 minutes till 2 p.m. Maybe I can go a little longer than 2 p.m. Let's see who else can stick around. We have to talk about the biggest elephant in the room that broke just the other day. And that, oh, not the Coinbase case. Sorry, let's back up a little bit. Would love to talk about Coinbase and Binance, but I don't know if we'll get to that. The SEC charges HEX founder Richard Hart with misappropriating millions of dollars of investor funds from unregistered crypto asset security offering that raised more than $1 billion. Now, I started reading the entire thing, and by reading, of course, I mean listening. There are great apps nowadays that will read for you. And there was one in particular that references a 7-hour live stream. And we did do a 7-hour live stream with Richard Hart. There's one part here I kind of want to play where Jason and I already forgot the context. I did not have time to re-listen to it. But I want to play this real quick because he said something really, really stupid.
I thought that was how all yeah, no, that's fine. But look at so who do you think should build the replacement for the CD guys? Because
Maybe at normal speed.
Replacement for what? For the CD. We want to get rid of banks doing CDs. Bitcoin's been around for 10 years. CDs.
Oh, you're saying we want? Why do we? You're assuming that this is something everybody wants, right?
No. Yes, people like to earn interest. Yes, that's what they do.
He's asking, Tone. He's asking for our ideas on who or what could replace the CD. He's not suggesting that we actually want to replace the CD. He's looking for some creative input. How does that?
So I suck. So who should build the software?
Sure. How does this work today?
Well, currently you go to your bank and you give them money.
Yes.
And you can't use your money anymore. And you pick a time, and the longer time they pay you higher interest, but the interest they pay you is pretty pitiful. So if you get a 5-year CD, I think you make about 2.48% from a 5-year CD. So you're still cash negative compared to inflation, unless you use a very weird inflation model. Now, what you're going to try and say, and you're going to be wrong about, so I'll just do it ahead of time. Or do you want to say it? I'll just cut you. I'll just tell you what you're going to say. Tone's going to say, in the bank, you give them your money, and then they lend it out, and that's how the bank makes money, and everything works good, right? That's what you're going to say, right?
Sure.
Okay. That's not actually how the fucking bank works. That's how you think the bank works. It turns out that when you give your money to the bank, your fucking money does not get lent out. Your money goes on the liability side of the ledger. not on the asset side. Your money doesn't get lent out, but they do use your money as an excuse to actually get the money that actually gets lent out by the fucking Fed at retardedly low interest rates. So no, indeed, your money does not get fucking lent out. Your money is just used as a money multiplier to create more credit from the fucking Fed. It is not lent out. Furthermore, even if the bank actually operated,
Richard, back up.
I want to let him finish. I want him to finish. Jason, I want him to finish. Go on.
I'm not going to run out of attention. We can do this forever. I don't mind. I'll take all year. It's fine. In HEX, when you stake your coins,
it's coming
and
up.
They get burnt, it reduces the circulating supply and the total supply, depending on how you measure, right? If you want to say, oh, but one day we'll come back, okay, then maybe it just affects the circulating supply, right? What happens in a static system with static demand when you decrease the supply? In a free market, the price goes up. And who receives the benefit of the price going up? All of the people that didn't use the truth engine to lock up their coins and say when they might sell them. Those guys are the ones receiving the price increase. They are being virtually lent the value that is created by people locking their coins and burning them and removing circulating supply. It's virtual lending. And it's more real than the lending that you get from the fucking Fed, which is comedic with negative interest rates.
I'm going to speed this up a minute.
No fucking sense.
All right, Jason. All right, now go.
Okay, Richard, you said that somebody deposits money into a bank and their money doesn't get lent out. It's used as
unless there's fraud,
a multiplier against overnight lending rates or long-term lending rates, right?
Yeah.
But without that money being in that bank can't acquire that loan to do that, right?
That's just the government's decision. Right? If the government could decide you got a lot of money sitting there, the government decides you got a little money sitting there. It doesn't really change it.
Hypothetical. There's 10 people that belong to a bank. That's it, because we're going to use a hypothetical easy number for our.
If it helps you meet the standards that the government handed.
No. And we each put $1 million. So there's $10 million in the bank, right? And just for easy numbers, based on that $10 million in the bank, I can get a short-term loan for $10 million and be able to lend that out or lend it out to other people, et cetera, based on the $10 million.
You will get a much larger than $10 million.
I'm trying to keep it simple for the guys listening. Okay?
All right.
Half of us decide we don't want to bank that bank anymore. Okay. So now there's only $5 million in the bank because we've withdrawn it. The bank had to actually keep funds on deposit and match those. Right? Or if they didn't have
FDIC insurance kicks in for your ass.
Yeah, I should have been more ready for that. This is coming up in like 1 minute.
Why? We're smart. We're all smart here. Fuck. All right.
No, not everybody's smart, right? But I've removed from that bank's deposit base.
Yes, now the bank is under collateralized, which is they have tests to fucking catch banks to do that shit.
And now, can I go out and borrow that $10 million? Or am I limited now based on the deposits that are in the bank?
And when you say, can I go out, are you the bank in this example?
Yes, it is the bank. Can the bank go out and still get that $10 million?
Yes.
No, they can't because they don't have the collateral to do.
Bullshit. You think banks don't get loaned money when they shouldn't? That shit happens all the time. That's why, you can get a loan as long as someone's willing to fucking give it to you. It's just literally an inert piece of text is all it is. It only has life when you use it. And how do you use it? By actually making a computer compute the instructions of the Ethereum virtual machine. A human being or a machine owned by a human being needs to cause the code to actually run an actual CPU through the virtual machine to start doing logic on those numbers, right? And whoever does that is the enterprise. Whoever does that is the fucking guy that's got problems. You're running software, that's just your problem, man. You buy a gun, you shoot people, not the gun manufacturer's problem, your problem. You download some software and you fucking deal with North Korean shit, you're bad, bro. You ran the software. No one else could run it for you. Only you could run it. Only you could decide to do it.
It's not how the code
nothing more personal. How can I force the code to run? How can I influence the code?
I was supposed to drop off about 24 minutes ago.
Right.
I was looking. I was looking.
I'm gonna look up some of the shit you told me.
All right, there might not have been a part. Man, it's really hard to find the right part in here where basically
just describing. Okay.
Yeah, the end of it all. I have all the links in this YouTube video description. It was obvious that Richard Hart owned the Ethereum address where everyone donated to put Ethereum into to buy HEX. He always claimed he didn't own that address. I'll leave it up to you guys. Sorry, I wasted like 5 minutes of time. I'll leave it up to you guys on what is going on here with HEX. Now, HEX is a Ponzi scheme. For those that don't understand how a Ponzi scheme works, basically, HEX token does absolutely nothing. And it is part of, it just goes into a smart contract that creates more HEX token. There is no utility for the HEX token. He has released multiple additional tokens with Pulse Chain and Pulse X. And I'll let you guys take it from here. I've done multiple debates with Richard, and I'll let the lawyers handle it. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Joe. It's your first time, Joe. Go ahead.
No, so here's the thing. I've read numerous complaints by the SEC in the past where they sprinkle throughout the entire complaint the allegations very similar to what is alleged against Hart about buying fancy watches and clothing and, you know, what's the Enigma diamond and all these things. And the interesting thing about this for me is why with
luxurious
this
and lavish lifestyle.
Yes. And when I usually see those in an SEC complaint, a little antenna goes up because I'm instantly sort of expecting, or I would have already expected, a similar companion filing from the DOJ. And I would be curious as to anyone who wants to comment on this, Jason, David, and others, why we haven't seen that, assuming the factual allegations that have been pled against him in this complaint we just received on Monday are in fact true.
So let's go through the process of how we got to this civil complaint for our dear listeners, all 324 of them who are watching right now. There would have been an administrative investigation. That means there would have been a commission approval to investigate Richard Hart. There would have been a case file open. There would have been investigators assigned. Those investigators would have worked with folks at the Department of Justice that are actually trained and certified in tracing cryptocurrency and investigating cryptocurrency transactions. Then all of that information gets handed up to a supervising attorney somewhere, who then starts working the file and then would more likely than not send out a subpoena to Mr. Hart for documents, communications, what have you. And the reason I say that it went through that process is what's noticeably absent from this complaint is also the request to freeze all of Mr. Hart's assets upon the filing of the complaint. That's absent, which means they went through a negotiation period and they went through an investigation period here where they gave Mr. Hart an opportunity to respond. When Mr. Hart said, no, I'm not going to take whatever deal it is that you have, then a Wells notice was provided, which means we're about to go to the courthouse. Is there anything you want to do before that, before this doesn't go to the courthouse? At which point they couldn't come to an agreement. And now the charges, allegations that are in this complaint are there after probably a 1.5 year long process leading up to. So,
or longer, right? Potentially.
Yeah, that means there's 2 to 3 years of information that the SEC has gathered using DOJ assistance on this in parallel. And if I'm DOJ, I sit back and I let the SEC go to town. I let them develop the record. I let them develop the witnesses, take the depositions, make the record for them, because by the time it gets done, whether it's summary judgment or whether or not it's a finding of liable for the allegations, now DOJ can just take that entire record and put people in handcuffs. That's exactly what they did to Shavers back in 2014. This is the mode and methodology that I've seen in cryptocurrency used, is let the SEC or the state regulator have at them. And then when they're done, the handcuffs go on. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it both ways, right? I mean, when you have overwhelming evidence and it's not really a need for the factual record to be developed further on the civil side, I could see and the facts here to me would fit that bill, where I think the DOJ could have moved first. And what I'm really expecting here is I don't know. I don't expect, based on what I've heard, and I could be wrong on this, but that Richard Hart's going to even appear and defend this action. I think he'll take a default. I'm not even quite sure where he's at right now, if he's in the United States.
Allegedly in Finland.
So because of that, if the idea, Jason, is you're going to establish, you're going to let the SEC go to task and do all this discovery and do the work for the DOJ, I'm skeptical of that in the event that a default is taken. because you don't get any of that, right? Of course, and then he's on the run, and it would necessitate a criminal involvement and attempted extradition. So I'm a little bit confused by. I mean, I suppose what you're saying is plausible. I just I'm not as sure. I'm not as certain of it as I think you are.
So, Tom, let me ask you this: how much money do you think Richard has right now? You think he's rich?
I think Richard is rich. I think Richard can probably scrape together close to $1 billion.
Okay, so
$1 billion.
Here's what I spent the day yesterday defending on this and saying. This complaint does not make sense to me. This is the weakest of all of the complaints I've seen. HEX itself has been, from our community, a known Ponzi scheme for 4 years.
Yes.
They talk a lot about HEX, but the real claims here are about Pulse, which is less than like 6 months, a year old. Most of the allegations are like 6 months old.
Yeah, I agree. I have no idea why they didn't spend or in the allegations focus on the HEX transactions. They allude to them, but it's
speaking. I mean, I haven't gotten to my brilliant analysis yet.
Sorry, David. I'm sorry. I was wrong.
The people want to hear the
David.
reasonable, non-legal jargon right now. So what makes this really weird to me is, Tone, I think he has as much money as you do, maybe less. I'm putting him over hundreds of millions of dollars for what he's raised, for what the crypto sleuths have shown. If the SEC went to him and said, the biggest claim we have against you for fraud is $12 million, he would have been the dumbest criminal ever to simply not pay the $12 million and take the actual criminal side of this out of the complaint.
You
So
don't
either-
take the criminal out of the complaint.
No, wait. Oh, I'm gonna get there. It does. It takes the biggest criminal aspect that they have right now. There's no companion case. I'm with you. If they had a companion side to this and they were doing the criminal, but all they have right now for what he misappropriated is the 12 million. A lot of these other
Allegedly.
camps, like Kaczynski, manipulating the sell, other things on the other tokens, those manipulations were in the hundreds of millions of dollars. The only misappropriation he's technically accused of in this complaint is $12 million.
Which is insane.
$12 million and gutted that claim instantaneously on a notice. So
Yeah, there's actually on-chain data showing that he has 720 million of DAI, which would be
that sounds
obviously
reasonable.
borrowed against his ETH.
yeah,
Sorry?
and so,
That sounds reasonable.
yeah, and again, I forget his name. Truth Slayer was on with us yesterday. A couple of the Twitter crypto guys, they've all have the showing all of his control. So it makes no sense to me that he would. No guy worth a 700, 500 to $1 billion who loves the publicity this guy loves. And if you believe everyone who's saying this guy's more about the fame than he is about anything else, is going to go underground for the rest of his life. Hey, God bless you. Steal $1 billion, go underground, stay in Finland. But this complaint standing on its own does not make sense to me. It was the weakest written of all of the SEC complaints so far. There's just something, either another shoe's going to fall with the DOJ, and what Joe and Jason want to say is the criminal
The DOJ has to fall.
What?
The DOJ shoe needs to drop on this.
I don't see how it couldn't. I mean, that's the strange thing, given these allegations. But
these allegations are so weak, and the misappropriation is what bothers me, because I file lawsuits all the time on guys who steal a couple of $1 million, and they're blowing, the $12 million. I can make those allegations. The SEC better have something more than this, that the only misappropriation was 12 million. Because if this is just a civil unregistered sale of a security, then none of this makes sense. That's my point, and I'll stick to it.
How about the whole, so with Maszynski, there's a company and there was, it sold investments. How does this relate to the fact that there's just a person with what appears to be no limited liability, no company, no structure, and that was just money that, his whole thing is, by using the word sacrifice, they were essentially giving this address money, and that was not put into a company. It was obviously he was very, very careful. He knew securities laws in terms of what words to say, and he's obviously got some kind of mental condition. I don't know what it is, whatever you call that. But does the whole fact that this was done, like, there's no company in the middle, there's none of the normal structure in this stuff. How's that going to play out in this, do you think?
So it's sole liability, sole individual liability. It's just like any other time a person goes and steals something from someone, it falls on the individual.
Well, David, just to go back for a second about the 12 million, I think 12 million is what they've been able to trace, but they allege in the complaint 217 million was directed to a wallet that he controls. And the way I read it, they're sort of unclear as to how much of this is still held by him or where it's at or, what it's being used for. It seems very much to be ambiguously pled.
I agree with you. That's weakness. That's not a sign of strength. That's a sign of weakness.
Right.
That's why I'm saying of all the complaints, they went in with Binance. They came out swinging against Binance with a lot of old text, old emails, and old stuff. I read that complaint yesterday, and I'm going to throw out unregistered sale of a security, slam dunk, even with Torres doctrine. Slam dunk. He's going to be held personally liable for all this shit. The problem I have is criminality. We've been talking about criminal people all day, potentially SBF, potentially Alex Mashinsky, potentially a lot of Big Vern. These are people, to make a criminal, he would have had to steal money. And my whole thing is, if I'm him, I say, whoa, the biggest claim you have against me for misappropriation is I took $12 million to spend it on my lifestyle. Here's $12 million back right now. Right to the check. If I'm worth 500 million, that's worth 12 million in legal fees to if he hires a real lawyer. I'm dying to see who he hires. If he defaults, then none of you guys are right. No, there's no way he defaults with $1 billion in his pocket.
I think he defaults. But putting that aside, I mean, paying back the 12 million doesn't absolve you of the criminal liability. That doesn't. It's not a get out of jail free card.
Misappropriation, 100% it does.
Absolutely not. No. If he were to
if he strokes a check for 12 million during the investigation and says this is an accounting, we will deal with this. I have no notice of this. I'll give you the 12 million back. I'm not saying he's not guilty for misappropriating it. I'm saying that ends the complaint. That ends the issue in the complaint. They can't.
You're talking about the civil side, the SEC.
I'm only talking civil side.
Yeah, but again, if you walk in and you say, "Here's the check. I'm agreeing to disgorgement. I'm agreeing to paying this back." The next week you could be hit with a DOJ indictment. It's there's not. It doesn't prevent you from doing it.
Show me a DOJ indictment where someone came in and said, "You are right during the civil investigation. Here's the $12 million back. We have a disagreement."
I've been involved in cases personally where that occurred. So I'll send you some links. The DOJ moves at a different pace sometimes. What I'm saying is here, I don't know why they've taken, they put their side seat to the SEC. I mean, the SEC jumped on this one.
So if all of the investigation stuff happened that we discussed at the beginning, before the Wells notice, if Mr. Hart was under advisement that there was an alleged 12 million that was missing. If I was Mr. Hart's attorney, I would say, first of all, as part of this process, I want to do a proffer. I want to do a queen for a day. Let's get DOJ in. Let's get myself in. And I'm going to tell you everything because I believe I'm not guilty. And then if somebody says there's 12 million that's missing, and I've got the SEC and the DOJ in the room, I get out my checkbook and I say, how about an offer of civil judgment right now? And I write the check for 12 million and everybody's happy. Great. Can I go home? Have a nice day. That's that's been the strategy, right?
Okay,
but
let me
somehow
ask you this.
that didn't happen here. And that's what's crazy.
Jason and David, do you
No guy
think
worth $1 billion doesn't do that.
do you think he actually participated and complied with the SEC requests?
I have no idea. But
I'm gonna guess.
I don't believe so at all. I don't believe so. I don't think there was anything remotely close to what you were suggesting.
I think he pulled the shavers. Like when the SEC first reached out, and he's like, I don't care.
Yeah, so just for clarification, I started representing Trenton Shavers after the SEC's summary judgment was already filed in the case. And that's when I came in. I wasn't involved with any of the pre-litigation stuff. I just want to make sure that's clear. But
so the nuance to this case is that I guess he's going to claim, playing devil's advocate, is he's going to say the contract was all created And the money that you sent to this sacrifice address, which, by the way, is not me, but it is. So maybe there's some fraudulent misrepresentation there. He said the money was not an investment for me to develop this contract and do stuff. You were literally sacrificing, and you weren't expecting, I was not going to do anything with that money. That money is just going to sit there. But then there's this whole recycling part of it, where apparently he took the ETH, then that led to getting a bunch of HEX, and then that HEX actually ended up going into the Pulse chain, and he ended up with 95% of the supply, and then just kept recycling this money in order to gain more HEX. So that's where I think like the additional story that we haven't got quite here is, but from Richard Hart's perspective, that money was not given to me to spend on developing the token or anything. It was just sacrificed.
I mean, that's the craziest part about this case. The SEC has to make the argument that we are here to protect people who are so stupid that we have to protect them from themselves. Because here's a guy who said that you're literally what's called a sacrifice wallet. You are sacrificing your money. Even dumb people know what the word sacrifice means. But, and Joe and Jason will better articulate this than me, it doesn't matter what you say sometimes. In the criminal and the SEC world, real lawyers are going to, prosecutors are going to charge you. When he said the token was going to $1 million, he was selling the dream. And you can't sell the dream without doing it properly.
So I'll tell you what he was trying to pitch, right? When he kept saying, he tried to avoid specifically saying how much the token is going to go up. He's going to claim that every time he said there'll be a 40% return, he was talking about 40% return in terms of the number of HEX tokens you will have. But he'll claim in his defense that he never actually talked about the value of the HEX token, which I'm sure he slipped up.
He did. He did the 10,000x comparison to Bitcoin. It was on the
$1 million. Yeah. So in our, first of all, in our 7-hour grilling, when Richard Hart came on, the first thing I did, and I'm paraphrasing here, is advise him not to speak. I just want to make that clear. And he said, "You've Mirandized me." His words. And then he went on for 6 hours talking about how great everything was, how the tokenomics of HEX are better than Bitcoin and better than Ethereum. He went on to describe the intricate workings of all of it. And all I had to do was sit there and play the role of taking a deposition. And that's what I did. I played stupid, I played smart, I played angry, I played frustrated. I just let him talk. And the guy hung himself. He just hung himself. Everything. When he said, I'm not going to, this is the thing. When he said, I am not going to tell you who has control or the keys to that wallet, because I don't want you to know, because you'll get it in your head, in your idiot head, that somehow I'm the guy that you sue, or whoever that is that you sue as part of the Howey test. So he specifically said, I am not going to tell you who holds those keys, which is a material omission in connection with the sale of a security. I mean, everything the SEC needs is right there. It's just insane.
Let's just talk about one sort of legal wrinkle in this. And David,
hey guys, real quick. I have to jump on a call, but I'm gonna keep this going. Okay, so I'm gonna get off the stream. I'll keep an eye on it. I'll take the call with my cell phone. You guys keep going, and I'm gonna have it on. I'm gonna mute it from my end. But like DM me on Telegram if you need me to jump back on. I should be back in like 15 or something. Okay, but keep going.
No worries. Thanks.
Okay. So Jason, David, and Simon, what I want to talk to you about is this issue of.
I don't want to cut you off, but it's my role as moderator now. I'm just going to have to moderate and tell Jason he's wrong all the time. And I will be the one who moderates. I'll let Simon know when he's muted himself. And we'll get that going, because now that I've had my 30 calories for the day, I'm feeling much better. I'm picked back up. When you only get to eat 1,000 calories a day, you get a lot more.
What did you eat? What did you have? A protein bar or something? What did you have?
I had a bunch of chicken, grilled chicken with a little Caesar dressing on it.
Yeah, that's 50 calories there, right? There you go.
Oh, you, Joe, go ahead.
So here's the thing, guys. Let's talk about this. That you're correct, David. I largely agree with you about the 12 million directed personally against him. But the SEC does allege that Pulse Chain and PulseX, the entities sued alongside Hart, are effectively alter egos of Hart. That those entities themselves, those unincorporated entities, committed securities fraud, and they want a disgorgement of anything sold or by Pulse Chain or PulseX. So potentially that puts the 400 million in play. And let's go back to the question we had of default, right? I mean, this seems to run counter to his entire analysis. If he does defend, is he going to hire somebody to defend Pulse Chain? And I mean, I don't even know how you would defend a non-existent entity. I mean, realistically, they're all just alter egos of Hart, right? I mean, that's the interesting wrinkle in the SEC's complaint, because it's not just against him; it's against the Pulse Chain and PulseX.
So, and now am I playing my tone role here? But that's the whole point. Let me ask you, Joe, is if we sit there and we agree that you're right, isn't this really just a lawsuit against people giving money to Richard Hart, or whatever his real name is, because it's never the person's real name in crypto? I mean, Simon Dixon's real name is actually David Silver. It's amazing that we both have the same name. But here, aren't they really just suing Richard Hart?
Yeah, they are.
And I'm with you. You're a lawyer. Who'd you sue here? You sued a code? You sued a chain? I get the lawsuit against my client, Richard Hart, but who else are you suing here? There's never, what's the pretext of, and I mean, if we want to really get legal nerdy,
I can answer that question.
No, Jason wants to go first.
I like
this to respect how he raised his hand.
To the extent that there are cryptocurrency trading accounts on various exchanges that may or may not use Pulse Chain as the owner,
right?
They need to list those entities or assets in order to be able to
get a turnover order,
freeze, or claw. So that's I think the only reason, and probably the most logical reason, to do that.
But most of the exchanges were in the DEX ecosystem. This wasn't listed on centralized exchanges much.
At the end of the day, I really
hold on, Simon. I was able to do a little bit of tracing yesterday, and was able to find the exact Ethereum address at Bybit that he was using to out funds. So yeah, when he was emptying the coffers, he was emptying very quickly and in a lot of transactions.
Oh, you mean his personal account where he was getting it in? Okay, yeah.
I don't know what name the account was under,
account,
but it went to an Ethereum address at Bybit, and from there, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
So more importantly, let's go back to this for a second, because this is what people really want to know. Is he going to be convicted by the SEC civilly, DOJ criminally, for running a scam where he literally told people, let's forget about some of the statements. We're only going to focus on the statements that his people want to talk about, because this is what I heard all day yesterday. Is he going to go on and win on the argument? I told people, I am not working on this. You are donating your money to me. This is a sacrifice wallet. Did he do enough here where he actually outsmarted the SEC by saying that this is all, these morons all gave me their money, all gave it to me to get extra HEX coins, and I told them from day one, these things are worthless and you're sacrificing your money? Is that the actual winning recipe to win with the SEC and potentially the DOJ? Joe, go ahead.
I'll let Jason go first on this one.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
All of the morons yesterday, all of them, they all, who literally told me, I don't understand what being a lawyer means. And I said to them, well, it's funny. Most people would say I'm not really a lawyer anymore. I said, I have real lawyers who tell me how to sound smart. I said, here's the issue. Did this guy come up with the magic elixir by literally saying, you are sacrificing your money to me? We are not building anything. We're not doing anything.
Wasn't that Pulse though, not HEX?
No, that's HEX too. But throw out,
I didn't HEX.
So I can play devil's advocate here. If you just go on those statements that he said, I'm not doing it. I'm not, this is a sacrifice. We are not promising you returns.
Oh, it's all bullshit.
You think that the SEC can still convict him despite telling everyone who gave him money? I spoke to a client today. He lost over $1 million.
Well, just to be clear, David, you're a lawyer. You understand in a civil case, nobody gets convicted.
I'm still thinking this is all criminal.
Yeah.
But the SEC is going to prevail against him, and they're going to get a judgment against him. If you want me to be a real lawyer, so they're going to prevail against him both civilly and the DOJ criminally, even though he told these morons that there is no value to anything you're investing in. You are sacrificing your money.
But
But he also said it with 10,000x in
No,
price.
forget that.
He
We're going
said
to throw
both.
that one out for a second. All of his material very smartly says it is literally called a sacrifice wallet, that you
Yeah.
are sacrificing the wallet. If he said nothing else and said you are sacrificing your money to
So-
me and I will give you tokens, did he outsmart the SEC?
No,
Why not?
because of the panoply of statements.
Don't
that
use words I
exist.
have to look up to understand.
In the continuum. No, based on everything that was said as a whole, in the reason that you can ascribe liability or guilt to Mr. Hart under these circumstances is because we can determine his mens rea when operating this scheme. He
Okay, but I wanna throw
intended,
that out for a second.
he
The HEX
intended
heads-
to
wait,
deprive
the HEX heads
people
want
of
you to
their
throw that out.
money with
I wanna
a
be a HEX head for a
fraudulent
second. I want you to be a
artificer
HEX head.
scheme.
Stop. We're not taking the panoply of the circumstances. My parents would be wildly disappointed with my $150,000 Michigan English degree right now that I'm required to look up these type of words. If I only studied, I probably would be more successful. But my question to you is, if he simply said nothing else and said, I am going to create a chain that I'm going to have what's called a sacrifice wallet, that you, the person giving me money,
I
are
understand all of that.
sacrificing your money, and the
Yeah.
only thing you are going to get is a hex coin. And every time you hold a hex coin, it will spin off another hex coin every 3 months. So you get 38% a year.
So let's say that's the only thing that's said. Not, and we're going to put it on an exchange. Not,
That's it.
the only thing it says is, give me your Ethereum and I will give you Hex. And Hex is
So not give me.
worthless.
You're sacrificing. You're sending it to a sacrifice wallet.
Fine, sacrifice your Hex to this unknown burn wallet.
No,
Sacrifice
you're
your
sacrificing
ETH.
your ETH. Wait, you're
To an
sacrificing
unknown
your
burn
ETH
wallet.
to a burn to a sacrifice wallet. It wasn't a burn wallet. He didn't say he wasn't keeping it. He said, I can do whatever I want with your money. All you're doing is you're sacrificing your ETH to get Hex, which is going to produce 38% a year more Hex.
So if in your micro universe, maybe he gets away with it. However, Richard Hart doesn't live in a micro universe. Richard Hart lives in a universe all of his own. In fact, there's a documentary that I think he paid to have filmed of himself that's coming out in a couple of days, where somebody in the troll box asked, they'd have to show proof of him spending on lavish goods. That's all the documentary is a documentary of him spending money on lavish goods. I kid. No.
Wait, people think I'm emotional defending Richard right now, just to be fair, to show how people don't understand.
Clearly they don't understand the dynamic that we have. As Joe pointed out earlier, the securities laws, the 33 and the 34 Act were interpreted by the Supreme Court a long time ago, were intended to be flexible and dynamic in order to combat the changing schemes that are able to appear and be created faster than laws can be created to adjust for them. And Richard thought that he could get over Howie by simply not telling you where the money's going. That's the arrogance of Richard Hart. Richard Hart thought that if you pushed the button that chose to stake the funds, that somehow you're in control, and that his creation of the software, him paying for it to be created, him promoting it, him pumping it, him publishing it, him doing all of those things would absolve him of any management and control arm of the Howey test, because you, the idiot that he targeted, and he told people they're not smart enough to know what to do with their own money, so he was going to take it from them. Those are his words.
Yes. And that's why I love this guy. There's a little bit of me that actually loves this guy. This guy is the opposite of Alex Mashinsky. This guy did not go out to the marketplace and say, I am giving you a new form of a bank. The banks are making all the money right now. And you, the user of the bank who give the bank your money, you are getting a 1% return on your savings rate.
They had the same shtick at the same time. They sold the same piece of shit.
No, he sold a prettier piece of shit.
Mashinsky or HEX?
No, Hart. He sold something prettier. He said, I'm stealing your money.
No, he sold an undisguised piece of shit, whereas Mashinsky disguised the piece of shit. He wrapped it in something looking nice.
Let's not get bogged down in the minutiae of the quality of shit here. Can we?
I mean, it's insanity that we're sitting here talking about this guy 4 years later. And this was actually, now that I watch my metrics on Twitter, it's really funny to me because I don't think I'm shadow banned. I just think I'm ridiculously unpopular. I get like 400 or 500 impressions on my average tweet nowadays. But my biggest impression of the day yesterday, which was like 10,000, is when I knocked the SEC for taking 4 years to actually file charges against this guy. And then Shreki came on and he was like, well, David, you're wrong. You know, they just use everything for the statute of limitations except for SBF. SBF got pinched quickly because he embarrassed everyone. And I don't disagree that typically the SEC and DOJ drag their feet until the end of the statute of limitations. They do that for a variety of reasons. That's why they are who they are. But what's interesting to me here is it reminded me of the people like Vitalik who took shots at BitConnect back in the day. Everyone knew these high yield investment programs like BitConnect were a fraud on their face. You couldn't generate 20, 30% ROI on money in crypto any differently than you did in real money. People were knocking HEX from the beginning, saying this was a fraud. You guys did 6 hours where you called him a fraud. They literally cite to the 6 hours in their complaint. Why did it take them 4 years then to file this?
Correct. And I think I may have said that yesterday on the town hall that you and I were on. That the timing, you know, I mean, why did it take them 7 years to come after Ripple? Why does it take so long for these things to come through? That said, I want to address something that's in the troll box. And I'm going to bring it up here. Gabriel says, HEX stake is an investment contract with yourself. No need for regulation as the fiduciary responsibility lies with yourself. You create the contract, you set the terms, time, amount to invest, etc. Now, David, having heard Gabriel's statement that HEX is an investment contract with yourself, has Richard Hart solved Howie? Did he do it?
I'm told by Rand Neuner that he is one of the smartest people you will ever meet. Maybe not having lawyers is the way to go. Maybe not bringing counsel to when you do 6 hours on your product the day after you launch is the way you go. I do have a question though. I want to know if this is right. HEX never had a sacrifice wallet, only Pulse did. People think I understand. I know what HEX is and that I have investigated HEX. The only sacrifice wallets were in Pulse, not HEX.
Yeah, so HEX did a type of sacrifice that is a little intricate. So what happened when you decided to stake your HEX tokens is that those would get burned and then your wallet would just fill up with new HEX tokens as time moved on. And so that was a bit of a sacrifice, but it's an artificial way to control the supply of the tokens within the ecosystem. It's something that Richard talked about at length, but that was a while ago. So he had it. It's part of his tokenomics of controlling and artificially manipulating the supply in the economy. Does that make sense?
No, there was actually, so there was different components. You had if you connect your Bitcoin, then you can demonstrate that you own Bitcoin, then you can get some HEX. But there was actually
that was their airdrop component. Yeah.
Yeah. But there was actually here's 1.2 million ETH from 23,000 people, and you get HEX, and you're sacrificing it. The smart contract's already written. You're not investing it in order to build a better ecosystem or market this ecosystem or anything. You all have to do the marketing. You have to build the community. You all have to, but the code is final. No upgrades are needed. It's all written. And you're just going to send some ETH to that address, and no one knows who that belongs to, and it's not going to be used for anything.
Jason, Danny Boy is calling probably me stupid. I don't want to insult the rest of you. He's probably calling me stupid. What he doesn't understand is that you're the only person who's ever educated me in crypto. So if I'm stupid, it's only because I learned it from you. I mean,
You're right. You're right. I'm a poor teacher.
You're a poor teacher, man. So look,
Gentlemen, I got to jump. It's been a pleasure. Look
Joe.
forward to talking with you all again. Okay.
Yes, we'll do it again.
Bye, Joe.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's go.
Let me do something here real quick. All right, if you're gonna be a good troll in the troll box, if you're saying wrong again, dumb lawyers, be fucking specific. Okay, what am I wrong about? Who's wrong? Jeez, you know. And if
Danny
you're
Boy,
going
we're
to
talking
say
to
that
you,
we're
man.
wrong,
We are
because we're not
interactive
pumping
show when
HEX,
Tone goes away.
if we're not pumping HEX the way we want you to pump HEX, and by the way, HEX is never coming back. It's never coming back. It's at 0.005 cents. 0.005 cents right now. It is never coming back. And if it does, it'll because Richard pumps more bullshit into it. And no, it's not a Fiero behind me. It's an 81 Lancia Beta Zagato. You're welcome. End of my rant. Go ahead.
Hey, Jason, what do you think? So obviously his response, he released a video and laid into the SEC for not actually very truthful things, but not preventing anyone from getting in Celcius when he was trying to tell everyone don't go to Celcius. Criticizing the SEC for taking 50 million from BlockFi, instead of that going to creditors, just laying into all the things that he told people not to do that the SEC didn't protect. Do you think antagonizing the SEC is a good strategy? And what comes from that?
So I think it was 2015, 2016, I antagonized the SEC to their face at the California Forensic Accountants annual meeting. And the SEC was in the room and I was speaking on it. And I flat out pointed my finger in their faces and said, you need to do more faster. And now the SEC really doesn't want to work with me on anything. So yeah, it's not a good idea to antagonize the SEC. If you're in the community and you're creating a project that is on the edge of violating securities laws and clearly violates fraud laws, you don't want to call the regulators out. It's not good strategy. But again, that's maybe the arrogance of Mr. Hart.
Jason, I like this one. HEX price is 100 times higher than when you debated Richard about 3 years ago. Once again, doesn't that make Richard the genius? You muted.
How is HEX 100 times higher?
You mean people in the troll box don't have accurate information either? This is world coming to.
I don't know.
I just don't get it. I mean, we've been sitting, yesterday was one, like, it was surreal. We were on that crypto town hall yesterday. It was just a surreal, because the people, it just really reminded me of 2016, 2017, when people were speaking eloquently about Ponzi schemes and ICOs. And they were saying, you know, all of the things that Richard was doing. And to this day, I still don't understand a single thing about HEX. I have not looked into HEX. I have not investigated HEX. I have not sued HEX. And I just don't understand these people who wax eloquently outside of trying to pump up the price to make money and make Richard money. Who made money on this thing? Like, how is it a useful chain that was going to do something? And then the people will be like, well, it doesn't have to be useful. It just has to show yield. And I think that's the problem, that this was a I felt like I was in a time warp. It was just like a crazy, crazy time warp.
So the only way HEX has value is if you can get it out of an exchange somewhere. I could have 10 million HEX, and if I can't get it out, and if I can't cash it in, it's worthless. Agreed?
Agreed.
So, you know, who's trading HEX today? What exchanges? Let's go find out. I like this game, CoinMarketCap. And what's its depth of trading activity?
Yes, there's a bunch of DEXs. I'm not aware of any centralized exchange that listed it. Maybe some did.
Markets. Here we go. Uniswap. You can trade your HEX for, I guess, wrapped ETH, USDC. 24-hour volume on HEX is 1.2 million for a HEX to wrapped ETH conversion.
Oh wait, Jason, I'm sure Tone's going to yell at us for picking on the troll box, but Danny Boy wants to let you know it's HEX that, you know, kept him living the lifestyle where he wasn't living in a garage like you. You guys don't realize this is Jason's over there. This is where Jason.
Let me ask some questions. Let me ask some questions on that. A lot of people made a lot of money on this thing. It did perform incredibly high. Like a lot of people made a lot.
Except Simon, the reason it performed is that Richard was pumping it. It's a self-inflated pump. This is a boiler room tactic.
Yes, but if you sold on the pump, it's nice. It's the musical chairs. Let Simon ask his question. I'm the moderator.
Of course. All right,
Simon,
go ahead.
It's even more interesting because it was designed around the certificate deposit where you could literally lock up your token for 15 years. So the whole idea was to make it where no one can sell. And there's again, I haven't studied all the on-chain data and stuff, and I'm by no means an expert in HEX, but there was the origin address definitely was going on with some recycling. And there was lots of obfuscation in the middle of how to get, how that came around in a circle that created new HEX. But a lot of people made a lot of money. And then as soon as Pulse Chain or around, I think it had a massive correction. Like for a long time, it was doing that. And obviously as soon as Richard probably allegedly stops pumping, it gets this big correction, this big typical ICO token correction. But then as soon as Pulse Chain got launched, there was this last minute tactic where a bunch of those HEX tokens, and the troll box can tell us exactly what happened, but it took the wealth that was made from HEX, and suddenly within the last 5 minutes, something happened where he gained control of 95% of the entire network or something, through the money that went through this recycling. This is what I think comes next. This is the bit that's hinted upon, but not really described in detail with evidence. That's the next part. And it was these people that lost a lot of money if they bought there, but the vast majority of all those years, people made very large amounts of money if they sold.
So lots of people make lots of money at the beginning of a Ponzi scheme. It's when the rug gets pulled on that coordinated exit where it all falls apart. And if we look at the HEX charts, I'm going to pull up CoinMarketCap again. And we look at
Jason, while you share your screen, because it's a really interesting, it wasn't just like a short pump. Like it was,
it was a long
there was a
pump.
lot of debate yesterday, by the way, Simon. I think you were on the crypto town hall with us yesterday. There was a lot of debate about the 95% thing, and I always chuckle at that. There's no doubt in my mind.
I can't share my screen unless Tone gives me the
Um,
right to do it. So anyway, going from when it first launched, April 16th, 2020, because I'm doing the whole chart review. Until May of 2021, there's little to no movement on HEX, right? It's under 2 cents. Then, starting in May of 2021 through September 2021, it goes up to 47 cents, its all-time high. And it's got $40 million in overnight trading. Then, as we progress to November 2021, which, stand by. Yep, November 20th, 2020 is when Richard Hart or somebody was emptying all of the HEX Ethereum wallets, just emptied the coffers, just gone. All of a sudden, December 7th, 2021, the price goes up again to 29 cents. It's never been there again. June 2022, there's more exiting. And then somehow, for reasons I have no idea why, March 22nd, 2023, it goes up to 11 cents, and that's the last it's been, and now it's at 0.005 cents. So that's the pained history of it. And what the folks in the troll box probably don't associate with is the big crash where, yay, we're at 50 cents, we're going to $1. The big crash is the absolute rug pull when everything gets pulled. Right there in the middle, Tone. November 20th. So, Tone, I sent you the tracing chart yesterday in Telegram.
You did.
Pull up that and share that. And that's just one address.
Wait, we got to do something very important, because before Tone came on 2 seconds ago, we had 293. Tone, I lost 7 people while you were gone because I was irrational defending HEX. And
by the way, I was gonna say before I jumped off, for all the new David Silver fans, we're gonna post his HEX address, and you can tip him in HEX for all the nice things he's been saying to help you guys out with the case.
One of the trolls was like, "Oh my God, you're so emotional and supporting Richard and HEX." I was like, "Dear God, I'm playing Tone right now. They think I'm pro HEX right now." But then you came on and like 10 people jumped off. I kept the audience for at least the 10 minutes you were gone.
So I got
another interesting element was in the before Celcius shut down, one of the justifications that was used internally with all of the internal debates that came out in the Examiner report, where their compliance officer was said, what we're doing is illegal and all that stuff is a scam, is a Ponzi. And they had all these turnover of CFOs and stuff. But what the justification in Mashinsky's mind was, he wasn't using client money if he uses it as collateral and borrows against it. And that was one of the justifications. Now, what's interesting with the Richard Hart addresses is what was released on Twitter was 720 million of DAI as one of the wallet addresses. Now, my guess is that if you've got 720 million worth of DAI, you probably withdrew all the ETH, left it, locked it up in smart contracts, and borrowed against it. So the whole borrowing versus selling seems to be something that these people use as a justification.
Yeah, so the first deposition I ever took, I was a second-year law student in Salem, Oregon at Willamette University, and I was clerking for the Oregon Division of Finance and Corporate Securities. And there was a respondent to an administrative action who had was under investigation. And one of the nice things that they did at the Oregon Division was they actually made sure that we did investigations before claiming people did something, because we don't like to ruin people's lives, right? So guy comes in after about 6 hours. And by the way, I got to depose him, which his defense counsel was absolutely giddy about, because his client was going to be deposed by a second-year law student, and that meant things were going to go easy because it was a training exercise. And so after about 6 hours, I opened up the bank records where it showed trip to Hawaii, staying at a resort, mimosas, luxurious things. And I asked the guy, did your investors know that you were spending their money on trips to Hawaii and mimosas and resort hotels? And the guy stood up and pointed his finger at me and tried to come across the table and yelled, 6 hours of this, and you want to go down this rabbit hole, blah, 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 blah. I politely asked him to sit down and answer the question. And his response was, I didn't think it was their money. When I left the division, I got a plaque that said, I didn't think it was their money, with the guy's name, and that was my going away present. Yeah. Anyway, what Tone is showing here is November 20th, 2020. Now, to put it in context, if we are to be fair, November 20th, 2020 was not the best day on the blockchain, was it? So.
What was November 20th? I know November at that time in 21, it was the top of the price, but not 2020.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Is it 2020 or 2021?
2020.
What happened in November?
So thank you for proving my point. To our troll box people that think that's how all of the different charts look right now, is that November 20th, 2020.
That's back here. That's when HEX was in the very early days.
Yeah, go back. Yep.
Yep, right there. Let me
Great.
zoom in
now, bring the thing back. Bring the chart back.
Right here.
Yep. Good. Now bring the chart back. November 20th, 2020 is when Richard Hart was emptying the Ethereum coffers. So the claim that the SEC has of recycling, if we go back to the chart, more likely than not, starts here, and you can see the recycling effort to drive up the price. Move forward, Tone. Reaches its all-time high. And this is the activity of recycling. Now, David, Tone, do you guys want to explain? Or Simon, why don't you explain to the good folks what recycling is?
Yeah, in the context of this, I think it may, again, I haven't read enough about it, but it was actually referring to right at the beginning, there was a mechanism whereby the clients were putting all the ETH in, and then you could use that ETH, bring it round in a circle to get much more HEX. And that's what I think they were referring to with the recycling. Whether it was being used in this context of pumping the price. I don't think that's in the allegations at this stage. I'm not sure. Does anyone see that?
So yes, there is an allegation of recycling that the SEC mentioned. Now, I will say, like, I did try to watch some of those 6-hour streams, and I don't remember where it was, but I specifically talked about how Richard is going to use the Ethereum and buy up a bunch of HEX at the low and issue it to himself. I stated this on that day. I'm trying to remember where I stated it. I don't really want to rewatch the 6-hour stream, and I saw myself say it like yesterday. I was re-listening to it somewhere. It also might have been in that debate that I had with Richard that I have like a little snippet of on Twitter. But I specifically stated that he would use that Ethereum to pump the price of X, to pump the price of HEX.
Yeah, I think that's right. So
I think we maybe want to switch topics a little bit because there's news trending on Twitter right now. And I saw it pop up a couple of times, and it seems to be legitimizing a little bit that there's a concern right now that the DOJ is close to announcing the indictment of Binance. And if that news is accurate, that their concern is how to announce this with all of the new allegations without causing a bank run on Twitter. Oh, not on Twitter, without causing a bank run on Binance. And let me tell you something. You want to know what news would kill the price of Bitcoin? That Binance is backed 10-1, and that there's only 10% of the assets on Binance right now, and that all the money is gone. Well, that would be the story. That would be what are we? We're August 2nd. So we're like 10 months post FTX. That would be the story of 2023 if Binance goes down and all the money is missing.
So I'm not sure. I think we're coming to a point where yes, the price of Bitcoin did crash on the FTX news, and then a few months later it recovered. And I think the reason why the price crashed is not because of FTX. Like once people realize that FTX doesn't have the Bitcoin, who is going to be selling that Bitcoin and where? So I think this Binance news, which I'm expecting, is that last big scammy exchange. And I think that Binance going down is actually going to cause a rise in the price of Bitcoin. I mean, it might drop for like a day or two, but I think it's going to reverse very quickly because I think people are starting to realize that if Bitcoin is not in their custody, they don't have it. And if the Bitcoin is missing, I don't understand who else is left to sell the Bitcoin. I think a lot of the Bitcoin ended up getting sold by panicky people, but who else is left to panic at this point?
Panicked. I sold all mine.
Right. Oh, by the way,
David,
did you imply, like right before I went off the stream, that Richard Hart has as much wealth as Tom Vays? Do you not see where I'm living?
I did not imply that. You and I both believe that he has stolen a lot of money and has a lot of money. I literally had a conversation this morning, and I was negotiating, and someone said, someone as part of negotiation said, no, you will negotiate with me. And my response was, your boss and I are the two richest people on this call. I will negotiate with your boss. I don't want to drop names. There's someone very, very high in the crypto world. And the lawyer was like, no. I said, let me be very clear. I hold all the leverage. I hold all the cards. I'll fly anywhere in the world to have lunch or dinner with your boss. Otherwise, my answer is no. And they were like, that's pretty ballsy. I'm like, having a couple of dollars in your pocket, and that's how you negotiate. You have no leverage. They were trying to renegotiate the contract, and I'm like, you have zero leverage. He goes, well, I do all the negotiations for my boss. I said, okay, go back and tell your boss we'll prepare to terminate the contract tomorrow. Now, the only hint I'll give is he's not a Bitcoin maximalist.
Okay, so I know I was gone for like 30 minutes. Anything like, did I miss anything that you want to hit on? Still hoping Adela joins us. She was listening earlier. I know Joe Carlasare had to go. Did he have any like insights on this? Now, look, I believe that Silver, you made an interesting point that this case is super weak against Richard Hart. So, Jason, how bad, like, how big do you think the DOJ case is going to be? They're not just going to let Richard Hart for everything he's done with his movie coming out, too. By the way, that trailer is hilarious. Did you guys watch that trailer?
No, I haven't
Is it
seen
the
it.
trailer? Wait, is it the trailer I watched where they were making fun of him? Like, is that the one he paid for?
Yes.
Yeah, that was insanity then. If he paid for that,
Yes.
that was them shitting all over him. Yes, that
I
trailer. was
know.
incredible.
I know. I'm so tempted to watch it because, like,
we have to make fun of Jimmy Diamond, who's trolling us in the troll box. Dude, have you not heard us speak about ourselves? We don't claim to be smart. Like, come on, man. You can't say we're not as smart as we think we are when we tell you we're not smart.
So here's my general sense of the HEX people that are still watching, which is awesome, right? There's 297 of them. They're mad that we didn't invite any HEX people on, and we clearly don't know what we're talking about because there's so many nuances in HEX that we just don't understand. So, Tone, the last time we had somebody from HEX on, which was Richard Hart, he's now facing jail. That said, who of you guys wants to come on and represent that you represent HEX and that you're going to be the spokesperson for HEX right now and explain everything about it? Raise your hand.
I do think it's funny though. Tone is the smart one in the group. We're on Tone's channel, so Tone's fans like Tone.
Right.
So, yeah, he's not the first one, man. I mean, I've done these shows with Reggie Middleton trying to warn him against launching a token. I hold myself responsible for preventing Kim.com from launching a token, though he still went the Bcash side. Man, like that Bruce Fenton episode was great, but though I don't think the SEC is going to come after Bruce Fenton.
Wait, the
Raven coin, yeah.
Can I say
Raven coin was a classic.
It is the only. Raven coin is the only coin I literally had to open up a Bittrex account after that one because I am a big fan of if you get on and you defend. And I've hung out with Bruce a bunch over the years, so I bought Raven coin, and when Bittrex went out of business, I had to get my Raven coin converted to Bitcoin a couple of months ago, and said I think I put in like a Bitcoin at the time. It was probably like $5,000. I only got back like 0.01 Bitcoin. It wasn't a good investment.
So David, so I have a question for you, and your Miranda rights have also been read to you. Did you buy Raven coin to make money, or
100%.
did you buy it as a utility token?
I bought it to make money, and I lost 90% of my money. I tell people all the time, never follow my investments. My investments are terrible.
Look at Jason's face.
But that
So
Bruce,
I'll say this.
Raven
No, hold
coin,
on.
that lawyer. Who was the lawyer that came on for Bruce?
I have Raven coin. Okay. But the way that I acquired Raven coin was by mining it. And I don't know if you remember in my shows, in the Not Your Lawyer shows, I used to do reviews of various things. And the way that I would do that is I would do it from soup to nuts. If you say you're mining, great. I'm going to load your mining software. I'm going to mine it. I'm going to see how it works. I want to test your wallet. I want to look at the code. I want to do all those things. So I think I have 4 or 5 Raven coin as a result of mining. Now,
I'm making it up, but I want to say like 20 or 30,000 of them. It was totally worth the Bitcoin. That was one of my better investments.
Oh my
so
God.
there's an interesting question here. One, Jimmy Diamond wants to come on and be the representative for HEX.
No, unfortunately,
we got to
it's
wrap up.
impossible.
I'm running out of time. I have a hard stop in like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a hard stop at the top of the hour. So I do want to play this trailer because it's too funny. It's too funny. This is the movie. Here it comes.
Okay. Volume.
What do you want? Don't bug you? I got a big dick. This here is $3.1 million of watches. I don't know world's biggest diamond. You don't. I do.
He is Richard Hart. Genius.
Legendary. Arrogant. Bit of a narcissist. The benevolent king. $250,000. Hate me. Hate me. I'm farther than you'll ever be in your whole life. Who does this guy think he is? Whatever the governments have been doing, it's not worked out. You've never had worse interest rates. Your money has never been worth less. Everything is getting worse. The only thing that's making it better is cryptocurrency.
It's better than the dollar. It's better than gold. It's better money.
Crypto is money without governments, and it is money without banks. You're not going to meet another product like this as long as you live. Yes, every scammer in the world is going to tell you something similar.
Good morning, everyone. Are you ready to look for some fraud this morning?
They are promising 40% annual percentage return. Only make people millionaires. Have thousands of millionaires.
Richard Hart's HEX token is a brilliant scam.
Desperation has a look to it. And when you're looking for just anything, you will offer anything.
HEX is going to be the new cryptocurrency. We'll take over the market. There isn't anything else out there that's worth the shit. Everything I have worked for all of my life is staked in HEX.
All my,
All over house money.
why is it important?
I want to feel loved. Don't you guys want to feel loved? Everyone wants to feel loved, right? Richard is a messiah. Satan, God.
That sounds like a Ponzi scheme.
Yes.
That you're incentivizing people to pull money off the market.
You know what? I think you just described a 401k.
If the music stops, they're sitting on nothing. X doesn't make money. That's where I'm so frustrated. What is the value?
Do you want to get rich?
No, I don't think that it's a scheme. Because I trust Richard Hart.
It seems like some of this is just a large performance art project. And if ultimately this is all a big performance art project, people are going to get fucked.
I mean, you can fool a couple people, but can you fool that many?
I should trust you.
Listen, I think you should trust me, but if you get into the habit of trusting people like me, you get the crap scammed out of you.
Now, I think like I don't know if this is a fake trailer, but if this is the movie he paid for, this is insane.
I don't say this often. I'm willing to go see that movie. Whoever offered the tickets, I'm willing to go with you. Tell me where you send me where you live. I'll take you as my date to the movie, and I'll even pay. Inviting freedom. If you look like that, I'm in for a date. I will fly out and take you to the movie.
I cannot I can't see my I don't want to financially contribute to this thing, but if we can stream it somewhere, I'm in.
I got some travel coming up. I did a interview with Scott Welker in the bathroom of the Four Seasons.
That's the Tether guy. Tether.
No, the Wolf of Wall Street. One of Mario.
Oh, okay.
One of Mario. It's like Mario Rand and Scott.
Oh, okay, got it.
But like we were talking about, I forget which one it was. It was like Binance Coin, and I did it from like the bathroom at like 2:30 in the morning from Maui. And he's like, "Dude, you have the greatest life." He goes, "The last 2 weeks ago, I did one with you. You were in Alaska. This one, you're in Maui." I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, it's been good. I think we can't lose the perspective. And Tony, I think you and I agree with this. Simon's in for sure, and Jason's got like boats, cars, and everything else. If you've been in crypto since 2012 and you were legitimate, you should have a better life today than you did 10 years ago. As long as you were legitimate, you're in a better place.
I mean, people have been making fun of my garage, but this is my 3,000 square foot place where I build race cars because I want to. And I didn't get that from HEX. That's weird.
I didn't get anything from HEX. I became an accidental Bitcoin maximalist.
Right. And yeah, I did say that Bitcoin was the Model T of cryptocurrency 6 years ago. And I still think it is. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing.
Simon, you want to agree with us? If you were legit 10 years later, you're doing better?
I mean, yeah, the highest performing asset will do the Richard Hart pitch now, and he presented his 10,000x. But yeah, I mean, Bitcoin has just been the thing that I think my thing was. I always came at it from we were building a securities business, and then we found Bitcoin, And so whenever all these other things were launched, we always saw them as securities. And that was to the detriment of a lot of our success. So we were doing equity, and then we almost got disrupted by all these tokens. But we always did, the thing we did is that we started as a securities business, and we figured out how to, create investment products around these different crypto innovations. And so we've always just taken that stance. And we've had some bad investments along the way, but you've got to make sure you do. And this is kind of the mixed message. Like, you can go on the edge of some of these risky things, but you never want to give up on your core Bitcoin stack. And if you want to play around with 5% of your Bitcoin to try and make more Bitcoin, I've never had a problem with that. But it's that most people, like I think in HEX, they literally, the Alex Majinsky message, safer than a bank, empty out your 401k, the banks are scamming you, put everything here, safer than a bank. And we've literally had suicides. I've seen people that are moving houses, like people that had to move from America to South America. The unbelievable amount of pensioners, retirement people that were targeted at this. And in the HEX side, I think people were like, this is better than Bitcoin, therefore you go all in here. It's an all-encompassing financial product. It pays you yield. It's designed to go up in value. And I think there's a lot of people that are all in. And, I think it's just been a fascinating story to watch Richard Hart, because I remember him from those early Bitcoin group, round tables with Tone, where we were just proper, really pushing and helping people understand the case for Bitcoin. And then there was a radical shift. And during that radical shift, something happened. I don't know what happened, but as soon as a new token was launched, and the flaunting of wealth and, in a way that is just so antagonistic, it was just so obvious that this day was going to come. It's just fascinating to watch that story and see it and watch it all along. And to see the movie right now, the day before the SEC, and then also him coming at the SEC, still going. I've got to say, I'm intrigued. I'm fascinated by this guy.
Yeah, no, I want to see the movie as well. I got to read one comment, and then we're going to be signing off with our Moment of Zen. Inviting freedom. Awesome comment. Tickets are sold out in my screening in New York, but my husband and I will still pay for your tickets. Tone, Simon, the good-looking one, and even the ugly one with the race car.
It really.
What's the trick, David? How, you've transformed yourself. It's amazing.
I remember meeting Tone. Tone was one of the people. This was pre-ICOs. We were in Washington D.C. at the club with Sydney. What was his name? Sydney Armani or something?
Armani, yeah, Sydney Armani. It was the National Press Club, I think.
I'm sure that's not his real name either. But we were sitting. Tone was defending Big Vern and yelled at me about Cripsy and was defending.
No, not Big Vern. I was defending Shavers.
Oh, you're gonna twist this and say you were defending Shavers. Shavers was just.
I was defending Shavers.
Shavers robbed. To this day, I'm not sure who. I want my Shavers money too. That judgment, Jesus, that judgment might be a 10-year judgment. I might have to go renew that judgment just in case Shavers cures cancer or something. I've got like 15 million against Shavers. Oh, those were good days. And those were pre-ICO days before everyone booed me off the stage. The ICO days were still my favorite. Guys, it's been a pleasure. The 200.
Wait, David, last thing. This will be quick. This is our sign-off moment of Zen. Audio's on. Here we go.
Questions?
Yeah, I had a quick making this happen and you being here, Derek. But the question I had, I've been going through ICOs and researching a little bit. And how safe are we here in the U.S. Not being an accredited investor investing in this ICO?
How safe as you or for us?
For myself.
you guys are fine. I think one thing I've learned a lot in the industry, especially since working in the finances, as long as the people make money, nobody complains. It's,
I got questions.
Come on, pause it.
Yeah, I had a question. Appreciate
My
I got
mouth.
questions.
This is when my mouth stops working. Here we go. All right.
That just, I'm gonna have some type of new rule. Don't take financial advice from guys living in their mother's house who wear hats.
Don't take legal advice from a guy that lives in a garage.
All right, guys. This was an awesome episode. We should do these more often. We didn't get a chance to talk about Coinbase at all. That would be the topic of the next agenda. And does the SEC have the ability? So I said something crazy on my stream the other day. I said the SEC has the ability to just delist Coinbase stock, and people are making fun of me for that. Real quick, does the SEC have a power to delist the company? Jason?
Yes, but not for what they're accused of.
Yeah, the SEC sort of has the power to delist a company. Delisting is a function at an exchange, and the SEC can issue certain things, to force the exchange to take them down. Right. But the exchange doesn't have to. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yes. All right, guys.
And then
we're
the
gonna get
exchange is in
going.
non-compliance and blah, 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 blah. But
We're-
anyway,
we're
I
gonna
do want to
try
say
do the
this.
show
Hold
again.
on.
Yes. Go ahead.
Jimmy Dimon, I did not cower away. These other guys wanted to cower away. But the next time we do a law review show, reach out, send Tone a private message. And if you want to get on and you want to be the representative for HEX, we'll try to do a segment on that next time out. But all of that is up to Tone. He's the producer and he makes those decisions.
Yes. So the only way to actually come on the law show, if you're not a lawyer and you're arguing for a specific project, is if you have a high enough role inside the project that the evidence in the live stream could potentially be used against you in a case, civil or criminal. If you're just some random troll, then that does no value for this channel whatsoever. But if you have a high enough following, and it could be claimed that you're one of those promoters that got nailed as well, as long as there's a chance what you say could be used against you, then yes, you are welcome to come on.
Okay, my
All right.
wife just came in, yelled at me, told me everything I'm doing wrong in my life.
Bye, guys.
I'm out, guys. It's 3 o'clock.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Later. Thanks, Simon.
Cheers, team.
Bye, Tone.